As we said, officially now, the excuses are over. It's go time. We're getting ready for the big debate between Harris and Trump and Harris. Obviously, we're still working to find a facility. If you know of one, they have to want us. And not saying that the people in the past didn't want us, but we love going out on the road, and our debate watch parties have, set the standard throughout the Treasure Valley for years and years and years when we're talking about debates or the State of the Union. Anyway, the State of the Union is pretty wild when you think about what happened over the weekend on Meet the Press. And before we get to that, let's get to a couple of things that we just heard at the top of the hour from Fox News. By the way, 580-5436, 580-KIDO is the number to call in if you would like to be heard on Idaho's talk station, KIDO Talk Radio. We would love for you to join us. But here you have this crisis going on in Israel. The crisis where here you have the hostages, an American, amongst others, being killed by Hezbollah, by Hamas, by everybody else. Right before they're about ready to be saved, the heartless Hamasians, the same people that cry about how bad the Israelis are, shot them in the back of the head after months of torture. And by the way, if you ever think that you've had a bad day, imagine what it would be like to be one of those hostages. The guy, the American who was killed, literally his hand was blown off by a grenade when he was taken. He was still taken by these people. And then they amputated his hand, and still kept him as a prisoner. Now, what type of lack of humanity, what type of lack of common decency do these people have? And this is what we're up against, and this is the fallacy of the people that, want Hamas to stay, that want Hamas to continue on, that talk about a two-state solution and all these other things. This is craziness that is engulfed our great nation. I mean, it was so crazy over the weekend that on Sunday morning I found myself in a Twitter feud with, we'll just call him Jeff the Former Suit, our former boss here at the Broadcast Center. And he and I were going back and forth about Meet the Press and Tom Cotton and his brilliant performance. And as someone who has been to the big time, maybe not in the radio lexicon as my friend Jeff the Suit has, but it has been at the highest levels of television, at least as a guest and almost as a contributor, I can tell you they did not put Tom Cotton on Meet the Press because they wanted to make a fool out of him. Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas, was on because he spiked the ratings for the This Week program. And he's going back and forth with Welker and before that, Jonathan Karl. And the guy did a brilliant job. And the crazy thing about this, and you go, Kevin, it's a Sunday show. I'm at church. Some of the most important news happens on the Sunday shows, and I'm going to get to it in a second. Meet the Press, and I'm going back and forth with Jeff, the Former Suit, on X. Again, he a millennial, me an Xer. And he's saying that Cotton's a buffoon. I go, Cotton's a great veteran. He tells it like it is. So on Meet the Press, they had to send a correction. Quote, on our broadcast this morning, we incorrectly implied that both Vice President Biden and Vice President Harris attended the dignified transfer of 13 American service killed during the Afghanistan withdrawal. Biden was in attendance. Harris was not. And this is where I just have this absurd notion the media just gets out of hand. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO, where they're sitting there trying to correct a guy on a Senate vote. And Cotton is talking about Harris's votes in the Senate. And they're saying, well, no, he didn't. And he looks at her and goes, Kristen, or is it Kirsten? Kristen, you Kirsten people just drive me crazy in a goofy way. No offense, Mrs. Pro-Life. And I'm sure the Kirstens people get mad at the Kristens people and vice versa. It's like a Sydney and a Sydney. We have that at work here. It drives me crazy. Both lovely young ladies. However, back to the point. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I love it where they're sitting there being they're not only being a moderator, they're the official and the opposing team. And Tom Cotton is going to tell you how she voted because he was next to her in the Senate.
Visit to Arlington National Cemetery. You've been talking about this. He attended a wreath-laying ceremony, obviously, for the 13 service members who were killed during the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. He was invited by those family members. Important to say that. He also had campaign staffers with him. Photos, videos were posted on a campaign site. Taking campaign photos and videos at grave sites is forbidden under federal law. You, of course, served at Arlington Cemetery in the Old Guard, so I know that this is a sacred place for you. Bottom line, though, I guess, Senator, is it ever appropriate to make campaign content at military grave sites?
He didn't take campaign photos there. These families, Gold Star families, whose children died because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's incompetence, invited him to the cemetery, and they asked him to take those photos because, as they told me yesterday when I spoke to Kelly Barnett and Darren Hoover, the parents of Taylor Hoover, who has Arkansas ties, they don't get to go to the beach on Labor Day. They don't get to have barbecues. This is their one chance to have a memory of their children, to commemorate their service and to honor their sacrifice. They wanted President Trump there. They wanted to take those photos. You know who the families also invited? Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Where were they? Joe Biden was sitting at a beach. Kamala Harris was sitting at her mansion in Washington, D.C. She was 4 miles away. 10 minutes. She could have gone to the cemetery and honored the sacrifice of those young men and women. But she hasn't. She never has spoken to them or taken a meeting with them.
Well, they did meet with them during the dignified transfer. They were with them at the dignified transfer.
Her and Joe Biden's incompetence, those 13 Americans were killed in Afghanistan.
Well, not everyone obviously was pleased with this visit. And again, just the law says memorial services and ceremonies at Army, national, military cemeteries will not include partisan political activities.
And it didn't, Chris. President Trump wasn't wearing a red.
It was posted on a campaign site, though.
He wasn't wearing a red MAGA hat.
I understand.
He didn't have a Trump hat.
It was posted on the
just
Trump
like Joe
TikTok
Biden. Just like
site.
Joe Biden has posted content of himself in the cemetery or in other cemeteries.
He wasn't with campaign
or in a dignified
staffers.
transfer.
Yeah.
They're all Americans.
Yeah, Kristen Welker is a disaster. Too much on the gotcha, doesn't know her facts. And Meet the Press made a bad decision when they got rid of goofy Chuck Todd. Chuck Todd was a policy wonk. Chuck Todd will tell you like it is. I didn't like Chuck Todd. I didn't like David Gregory. I loved Tim Russert. But you sit there at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, and you're taking a look at what these people are doing and saying. And, you know, Senator Cotton, it's funny, he has been on CBS's Face the Nation religiously, like every other week. And finally, this week put him on. He popped their ratings. Meet the Press put him on, popped the ratings. Everybody else put, because he tells the truth. And the idea that these media people, with all due respect to the media people, it's not your job to sit there and go, no. Your job is to ask a question, not to sit there and debate the person you're interviewing. Let's go to Paulie in Nampa. Paulie, welcome back. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, Paulie.
Morning. Top of the morning to you.
And to you. Yeah, Laddie.
Yeah. So here's the thing. The New York Times, when they print something which they know is out-and-out propaganda, a big fat law, 2 or 4 days later, they print the correction on the inside back page of the newspaper, where they know you're not going to see it. So the correction's never made. Well, NBC made a correction for their propaganda whopper in regards to the 13 servicemen when they claimed, by really shoddy reporting or just out-and-out propaganda, that Biden and Harris both visited the grave sites of the 13. Now, you know and I know that that's BS. But they put their disclaimer on towards the end of the show, I believe. And it's to where you're not gonna have time to read it because they do it printed, and they don't necessarily say it at the same time. So you never get correction, which is just exactly what they want to do because they want to give play favor towards Harris and Walls by saying that they did visit the graves. Now, I find that to be totally disrespectful on two parts. One, they're disrespecting us for thinking that we had the audacity to want to believe what they had to say in the first place. The second one is that means that these guys died, these men and women died in vain at Abbey Gate. And I find that just disgusting. I've never seen anything quite like it in my lifetime, nor did I ever thought that I would see what I'm seeing on TV. It's unbelievable. What Biden did 2 summers ago at the White House in the back lawns with Eva Longoria feeling her up, and then having that wannabe woman waving her breasts all around. It's just too much. They've totally disrespected the White House.
Well, never mind. You're right, Will. We had the trans woman or whatever woman or man running around naked at the White House, and Joe going, I want to sniff. Now, some people will say that's vulgar or what have you, but I mean, he's a sniffer.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm dismayed at times, but then again, it never goes away quite completely, and then I'm left with an emptiness in my heart for the United States of America, because they symptomatically have gone to the point to where they've destroyed the country, to where we're on the precipice of not being able to recover. And for them to disrespect them, particularly Harris, who's a communist, devout Marxist, she going to by her going to the Arlington Cemetery or any other cemetery that has servicemen in it, men and women in it, is posed. A lot of those people that are laying in those graves there at Arlington and other cemeteries have died fighting communism. And here we are, we're just about to quite possibly elect a lying commie, a pinko. And, are we going to change the flag to the hammer and sickle, or are we going to change it to the gold star with the 5 smaller gold stars? I don't think so. And what they've done to the armed forces in that administration is just reprehensible. I mean, one of the first things that Biden did, and Harris was along with him, excuse me, was they made it a law, finally, that they would not hang anybody. Lynch him is what they called it. And I don't know if you remember that. It was like the second day in office. They made a big point not to lynch people anymore. And I see why they did it, because we're out to get them. The way I see it, what they're doing and what they continue to do to this country, there's no excuse for it.
Paulie, I appreciate the call. Welcome home.
You have a great day.
You have a great day as well. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. The mainstream media, what do? They attack Donald Trump for visiting with the relatives at Abbey Gate. Now, I don't know about Section 60, but, you take a look at Tom Cotton, Senator Cotton, a Ranger, combat veteran, served at the Old Guard. I know our friend Todd Carlson, who does so much for the veterans, a veteran himself, served at the Old Guard. I follow him on social media, has really educated me just by following on social media the honor it takes to be a member of the Old Guard. And the media fixated on going after Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump's the only person that was honoring those folks whose relatives were killed at Abbey Gate. And we all believed that it could have been prevented if we had a competent commander-in-chief. The greatest lesson in life, and I think it really comes down to your boss. And there are some bosses that really get off on this in a good way, and maybe your parents. It comes down to admitting mistakes. You ever been around someone that they just never admit mistakes? And maybe you can't because it's political. Maybe you can't, you're going to lose your job. Maybe your job is your identity. I don't know. But sometimes, and I go back to Bill Clinton on this one. Bo, before you were born, Sweet William, you were covering this as I was. Bill Clinton got his butt kicked in 1994. The contract with America, not the contract for America, the contract with America, where the Republicans for the first time in 20, 30, 40, 50 years retook the House. Retook the House. Huge. So at the State of the Union, what did Bill Clinton say? I hear you. I hear you. I was wrong. And the Republicans were so overconfident that they underestimated the wily Clinton, and he got reelected, got the Democrats back in power. And lo and behold, a lesson, but he understood the dynamics. The country needed to hear him say, I was wrong. How powerful would it be that if we had Joe, who's literally sleeping on the beach, say he was wrong about Abbeygate, wrong about Afghanistan. The country, we were wrong about what we did to Vietnam, what we did to the Vietnam veterans. The veterans that came home to the dope-smoking, louse-infected hippies that spit on them. What would that mean to them? What would that mean to the families? So nobody's going to show up. As we disclosed last week, the military tried to prohibit Donald Trump from going to Abbeygate, to the Abbeygate Memorial at Arlington. And what happened next? He shows up, and all of a sudden, we have these allegations that Donald Trump broke the law. Again, does it sound familiar, true believer? It certainly does. Lindsey Graham on the Sunday shows, he had to defend Donald Trump.
Let me ask you also about this.
Snarly, snively Jonathan Karl that did not take his butt beating last week, his little butt boy beating from Senator Cotton, is back at it again, this time going after Senator Graham. It's as if they all get the same talking points.
National Cemetery. Obviously, I know former President Trump was invited by the families to be there. Yeah. But here's the statement that the Army has put out about what happened. They say participants in the August 26th ceremony and the subsequent Section 60 visit were made aware of federal laws, Army regulations, and DOD policies which clearly prohibit political activities on cemetery grounds. An Arlington National Cemetery employee who attempted to ensure the adherence to these rules was abruptly pushed aside. The incident was unfortunate, and it is also unfortunate that that employee and her professionalism has been unfairly attacked. Did the campaign cross a line here?
I don't know. I think we need to, I'm all for looking at what happened. But you know what really is unfortunate? That these families had to go visit their fallen loved ones at Arlington due to incompetence by the Biden administration. I've tried to work with President Biden to get Saudi and Arabia and Israel to reconcile. I've supported a lot of their nominees. I've known President Biden for a long time. But Vice President Harris bragged about being the last person in the room cheerleading the withdrawal of all forces that led to the death of these 13, rise in terrorism, combine that with a broken border, another 9/11's coming our way. So what I take away from this whole debate about Arlington is why they died, how they died, and the incompetency that led to their death. To the American people, we've lost deterrence. Nobody in the world is afraid of Kamala Harris. She has become, in my view, ineffective in terms of a voice for America. So if you want to avoid more dead Americans, vote for Trump.
And I know you also opposed Donald Trump's talk of quickly getting out of Afghanistan as well. Senator Graham, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, there we have it. We got to get that last word in once again. Last word in. By the way, for the vice president nominee, Tim Walz, Governor Walz, not doing very well with the media. Apparently, the media had an accident at an event when they were covering him, and the governor, who left no person behind, what did he do? He left them behind. Then he was asked earlier in the day about the 6 hostages that were killed, executed by Hamas, and he said no comment. He had to move on, right? He had to move on because Tim Walz is really not allowed to say anything. Of course,
you better thank.
Sometimes when you say something, it gets really bad. By the way, our outrageous comment of the day brought to you by our friends at Window World, windowworldboise.com for your best window replacement needs.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Yeah, you better thank a union member. Where did she get that accent from? Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. She is definitely no
Thanks, Obama.
Barack Obama. KIDO Talk Traffic with Tyler. Good morning, Tyler.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. From the Idaho Pizza Company studios, traffic now. Crews working on clearing a few crashes on eastbound I-84 between the Cole Overland exit and the Orchard exit. So watch for some delays in that area. As far as the rest of the freeway is concerned, as you're making your way into Ada County from Canyon County this morning, nothing really happening yet. So you're smooth sailing. With your traffic now, I'm Tyler on KIDO Talk Radio.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better
thank you, union member. Thank you, union member. Thank you, union member.
Thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Vacation time. Better thank a union member. By the way, it really makes me miss this guy. Whoa. How ridiculous is this? More of your phone calls coming up as we hone in on the big election. Also, ranked choice voting being discussed here in Idaho and across the country. Phone numbers here, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They remind you, stop freaking, call Beacon. That's right. Beacon Plumbing can handle all of your plumbing needs. No muss, no fuss. Beacon Plumbing will deliver for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call and they will answer the phone. They bring you Fox News on KIDO Talk Radio. Down the continued media-induced controversy involving Arlington National Cemetery and former President Trump, Representative Tony Gonzalez, not to be confused with the soon-to-be, or I guess Hall of Fame NFL tight end, but on Face the Nation, there, and it's amazing to me, like, and again, this week with George Stephanopoulos, he's on once a month, if that. And then it's Martha Raddatz, and then it's Jonathan Karl. You could tell nobody wanted to work Labor Day weekend because now they have a substitute, I can't even remember her name, in for what's her name on Whoosie Bobbitts. You know what I'm saying? On Face the Nation. So here we have Tony Gonzalez asked about this thing, and this is at one of the more stronger reactions that we're going to get here on KIDO Talk Radio.
You served in the Navy for 20 years. As a veteran, I want to get your take on what happened this week at Arlington National Cemetery. The Secretary of the Army felt that she had to put out a statement saying that an ANC employee, an Arlington National Cemetery employee who attempted to ensure adherence to the rules was abruptly pushed aside when the Trump campaign tried to bring a campaign photographer onto the grounds with the former president. And then a top Trump advisor posted even after that, I'm reposting this to hope to trigger the hacks at the Secretary of Army's office. Have you ever seen a campaign talk this way about the military?
You know, the funny thing about President Trump is he gets all the attention, and no matter what he does, sometimes that gets spun this way or the other. I can tell you that veterans...
That's not spin. That's his own campaign staff.
Well, I can tell you veterans support Trump far and away. And the fact that he was there to highlight that the 13 Americans that were killed at Abbey Gate, I think that's something that's overlooked. Once again, I served in Afghanistan. Unlike Tim Walz, who did not serve in Afghanistan, I've been there. I retired as an E9. Unlike Tim Walz, who retired as an E8. It's important for us to show up at the same breath.
By the way, and again, you're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. This is really interesting where Representative Gonzalez calls out Tim Walz for being a liar about his military record. There is nothing lower than people that lie about their military record, that enhance it or pretend to be veterans. No, that was something that had gone on, you know, that when the wars were popular, people would be pretending to be a veteran to get the discount or whatever. And, you know, coming up with stories until finally people would say, really, what unit were you with? What did you do? What type of mission did you go through? And then they would be exposed. And sometimes they wouldn't make it out of the VFW without a couple pops. Now, we're not advocating violence for anybody, but you don't lie about your military record. And again, you can look this up. You don't pull on Superman's cape. You don't spit into the wind. Jim Croce, God rest his soul. You don't pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger. You don't mess around with Slim or Jim or Tim Walls, who, again, is a liar. You could say a lot of things about him, but he's a liar. And you retired as an E8, not an E9. So there we have it. It's crazy. It gets a little deeper, but I love this where are you comparing, well, one person went to Afghanistan, one person lied about it.
When you compare your service to Tim Walz, are you saying that he's somehow less of a veteran?
I'm saying he lied about what pay grade he retired at. And I'm saying I'm not lying about the pay grade I retired at. I'm also saying it's important that Arlington is a very special place.
It is.
We have to make sure it's a special place. And we have to keep politics out of it. And I think it's important that we do that. And so, I wish both President Trump and, President Biden were there highlighting the fact of these Gold Star families. This is what we need to get back to. It's so much finger pointing. I get it. It's towards the tail end of the election. But we have to get back to putting veterans.
But there's one person, Representative Gonzalez, finger painting, whatever you want to call it, and that is the media with the Biden campaign. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. By the way, we, again, want to thank our friends at Window World Boise for the crazy comments of the day. We'll get that from the vice president in a minute. By the way, though, I love to get some feedback here. And we're getting feedback on our writing, our KIDO Talk Radio blogs, which is really rather interesting because, writing is not our first language. Some would say that speaking is not our first language. So this is from Jasmine. Hi, Mr. Kevin Miller. It's odd because she spells out the word Mr. and doesn't capitalize Mr., but does capitalize Kevin Miller. What makes you think we only have conservatives living in Idaho? Okay. I am a conservative for many reasons, but not for political reasons. Does that really make sense to you? How can you be a conservative? Maybe you're a conservationist. Maybe you're a tree hugger. Maybe you're someone who's a fiscal conservative. I guess she means because I'm a social conservative. Your blogs are very disrespectful towards other people that have different views. This sounds like ChatGPT, like some liberal decided that they would put ChatGPT on it and come up with a bad email. But I say this not to get your sympathy, not to say that I'm a victim, but to just give you an insight into other people's opinions. It's a free country, of course, but you, I believe, have no clue what you're talking about. Just getting paid for the job and you could never have anywhere else because your stories are exactly for audience like yourself. No brain. Okay, well, we've already admitted that my dad said if I had a brain, I'd be dangerous. However, I hope I made you laugh on that one. And this isn't Kevin Miller bungling a sentence. This is how it was actually written. Let me go slow. Just getting paid for the job and you could never have anywhere else because your stories are exactly for your audience like yourself. Well, of course. Well, I'm not going to write for the libs. I'm going to write for people of like-mindedness. That's why we say this program may not be for you. If you're a liberal, if you love Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, you're all about Lauren McClain.
Joe Biden.
This story, this place, these blogs.
Idaho casts 9 votes for Bernie Sanders and 16 for our next president, Joe Biden.
Are not for you, but I do appreciate the feedback, and you did allow us to kill 4 or 5 minutes with some content that wasn't really political, but the blogs I write are really about local issues, like the city of Caldwell finally getting the right message that, again, thank you to the Caldwell businesses. Thank you to the people in Caldwell that said, this is a stupid policy. This is a dumb policy. This is not even a Greg Ferrero policy. This is a dumb policy to pay for parking in Caldwell. Caldwell, thankfully, is not Boise. Headline, coming to a blog soon near you. Caldwell is not Boise, and they showed it. It would be nice if Boise would get smart and eliminate the parking meters. We're not going to eliminate the libs. We will continue to fight them, though, on the left, on the right, everywhere. And we're so proud, so happy to have our great friend Sean Hannity leading the charge daily at 1 on KIDO Talk Radio.
KIDO Talk Radio. And nothing but. This is the Sean Hannity Morning Minute.
The same people that promised you keep your doctor, you keep your plan, and you save on average $2,500 a year per family. Millions and millions of Americans lost their doctors, lost their plans. That's government promises. Guaranteed government job and guaranteed government child care, guaranteed government college, guaranteed government retirement, guaranteed government healthy food. How does it work out? Always ends up the same way. Unfulfilled promises and more poverty. And as a result, then you have to calculate how much of your freedoms you gave up in the name of false security. That's the left. And they've become more radicalized. You see it now in Europe, and you see Europe becoming, with under Harris and walls. That is their vision for America.
Keeping you on the straight path. Later today, it's the Sean Hannity Show.
Hey, at Blinds.com, they have their Labor Day mega sale. It is here. Blinds.com. Now, at Blinds.com, they make upgrading your home simple, easy, affordable, and there's no better time to score some of the best deals of the season. Now, Blinds.com is the better way to shop for custom window treatments. At Blinds.com, they have award-winning design experts. They'll give you free virtual consultations on your schedule. They can even send samples right to your door. Now, you can do the measuring and installation yourself or let Blinds.com handle all of it. They install unlimited window treatments for one low cost. And at Blinds.com, they have covered over 25 million windows, all backed by their 100% satisfaction guarantee. To make upgrading your window treatments non-labor intensive with Blinds.com and their Labor Day mega sale happening right now. For a limited time, save up to 50% off at Blinds.com. Plus, score premium doorbusters up to 50% off right now at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
And there we have it. Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's see. DJ in Meridian from the App Yap Club. Here's a link to the same line from the same speech. Trump War Room status. Hi, Kevin. Kamala gave the union member speech somewhere else and didn't use her fake Southern accent black voice. There's a side-by-side video out there. DJ in Meridian. Eric and Payat. Hey, Kevin. American citizens, young and old, who have been conditioned to hate America and God through the internet, through social media, and the smartphone. He is right about that. I am so amazed when we have young people today that love America because they've been conditioned to hate America. America now has a large majority of anti-American people who hate America's founding beliefs and values and are convinced that remaking the country is the best idea. We are headed towards civil arrest. Well, thank you for that before 7 a.m., Eric. Mark the Watchdog almost got it all the way out. It's not global socialism. That's the goal. It's global enslavement, which is the goal here. That is Denver in Nampa. Now, over the weekend, we had Tulsi Gabbard, former Congresswoman, on State of the Union. I can't get these shows straight. Talking more about Arlington and Trump.
I do want to move on to what is happening with regard to controversy after the former president visited Arlington National Cemetery this week. His campaign took photos and video of him in Section 60, where veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are buried, used it in a campaign video. The Army also says that Trump staffers abruptly pushed aside a cemetery official who tried to enforce Arlington's rules prohibiting political activities. I know you were with Trump at least earlier in that day at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Did you witness the altercation at Section 60?
I was there from the beginning with the laying of the wreaths with the family members, the Gold Star family members, and some of the survivors of that terrorist attack in that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. I was with them at Section 60, and what I saw was a very grave and somber remembrance and honoring of those lives that were lost. And I saw President Trump spending time at the invitation of these Gold Star families with them. He was there for a few hours. I did not see or hear about any kind of altercation until something came out in the news later on. The families were there grieving alongside President Trump. And
thank you, Representative Gabbard. By the way, and I don't know if we can grab this clip, But she reveals something that Dana Bash overlooked. That because she has become a surrogate for Donald Trump. By the way, can you imagine how many people are going to be upset if Donald Trump wins? People that are leaking stories to the media, like these folks in the Army, allegedly, like these people in government, like the deep state, like Jack Smith. Boy, they're not going to be happy if Donald Trump is back in because they know their goose is cooked. But Tulsi Gabbard revealed something that has not been picked up by anybody, including Red State, the Daily Caller, the Daily Wire, Town Hall. These are some of the stories some of the places we go for show prep. And she revealed during that interview with Dana Bash that she, in fact, has been put on a secret government list. Now, we're not talking about Terry from State College's favorite guy, Alex Jones. We are talking about a former congresswoman, a veteran, a wife, a person who ran for the presidency being put on the terror watch list or some type of super secret government list that apparently she is on and, is under suspicion for what? Now, we talk about the FISA things and everything else. We're going to get into that next. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. We would love to hear from you. We're live till 10. Don't forget the free KIDO Talk Radio app. And, of course, Clay and Buck following this program at 10. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. I appreciate that, Tyler. Phone number's here, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. A high today of 84. Won't that be great? Low tonight, 58. High tomorrow, 89. Now, Thursday. Oh, no. Well, we're not going to tell you. It's back into the 90s. Didn't want to ruin that for you, but here we have a former congresswoman, a veteran, being put on the double secret probation terror watch list. Where is the outrage from the media? Where's Brian Holmes? Where's Kristen Welker? Where's Chuck Todd? This is an incredible allegation, and if it's just a frivolous allegation, it should be disproven, and Congresswoman Gabbard should be held accountable for it. But if it's true, the same journalists that want to pull the gotcha moments, the same journalists that want to take down Donald Trump, where are they with the Biden-Harris administration? The only time that they cared about taking somebody down was whoa. And he's still whoaing about it on the beach. I still remember a buddy of mine who was fired. He goes, "I'm on the beach." And my buddy goes, "Well, what do you mean you're on the beach? You're on the beach? What beach?" "No, I'm on the beach. I'm fired." A little industry insider there. However, this secret watch list is just amazing. What happens when laws are broken and we don't care? Where's the media? That's why we're here. We're looking out for you. Kevin Miller, brought to you by Beacon Plumbing on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning. 36580-KIDO. We're joined now by our great friend, Congressman Fulcher. Congressman, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you.
I thought of you over the weekend, and you're going to go, "Oh, Kevin Miller, this is Kevin tries to pull the old Bob Novak gotcha questions." But I thought of you over the weekend as I was watching one of the Sunday shows, and this is Tulsi Gabbard. If you don't mind, I'm just going to play a clip for you because I think you can relate to this if you don't mind.
Issues related to freedom of speech. She says she stands for freedom of speech, and yet, as we've seen time and time again, her and Joe Biden have taken actions both directly and indirectly to censor free speech. Most recently, I can point to my own experience of this, of how the Harris-Biden administration have added me to a secret domestic terror watch list the very day after Kamala Harris was endorsed by Joe Biden, and I was on TV and warning the American people about what I saw as the dangers of a Kamala Harris presidency, taking action that was clearly political retaliation. They've done this to a lot of different people, which points to how dangerous it is to have people in power so willing to abuse that power to go after political.
So there we have former Congresswoman, a veteran, a former Democratic presidential candidate. And when I heard that clip on CNN State of the Union, by her interviewing by Dana Bash, I thought of you and that they have looked at your phone. They have done all sorts of things. How big an issue is this deep state terror watch list, the double secret probation list, sir?
Well, I agree with former Congresswoman Gabbard entirely. And, she is one of many examples of exactly that. And I had discussions with former Speaker McCarthy on this, and have had examples of other members where they have had their phones taken or surveilled. Excuse me. I strongly believe that I'm one of those. And when I confronted the administration over that, they would not say no. And so I'm relatively sure in my mind that I was one of those that was caught up in all of that. You've got members like Scott Perry out of Pennsylvania, who was accosted in front of his own home and his phone removed, and so far nothing has come out of that. I mean, the examples of this have been very stark, to the point where we've actually had legal training sessions with my staff in the event that an agency or anyone from the executive branch comes to the office or attempts to demand information, exactly what the appropriate action should be. And you shouldn't have to do that. There is this thing called separation of powers. There's the executive branch, we're the legislative branch. But that doesn't seem to matter, Kevin. When you weaponize a system, when you weaponize the intelligence community, which I believe this administration has done, Tulsi Gabbard is an example, I believe I am an example, then that tells you what this administration is all about. And they are very interested in the use of power in order to maintain control. And that's a scary thing. And that's something that we should not have to contend with in the United States of America, this third world style of abuse, third world style of using the system in order to maintain power and disadvantage your opponents. But that's exactly what they do.
You know, again, I immediately thought of you when I was watching the tapes over the weekend, and you warned us about this, and it seems, we've had this endless cycle from the pandemic on where it's just one shocker after another. And I can remember you being very descriptive, and, you worried about people coming after you. And, we take a look at as lifelong Americans, our civil liberties are something that we're born with, and they seem to be in jeopardy from this administration.
Yeah, I think that it's absolutely gotten worse. And this is the 6th year that I've served in Congress, and in that window of time, the measures that have been taken against members, and frankly the security provisions that have had to been put in place, I mean, reluctantly by some, in order to try to prevent that, the steps that we've had to take. Kevin, I've never had to worry about security provisions and steps that I take once I'm in Idaho. I've never had to worry about that. But yet the system has made it so that may not be the case in the future. And it's a sad turn of events when that takes place. But the members of Congress are less secure, and that's to a large extent because the administration has weaponized the system against them. And I'm not saying that there's everyone in Congress is squeaky clean and doesn't need to be held accountable from time to time. What I am saying is, in conjunction with what former Congresswoman Gabbard said, the system is definitely weaponized, and those of us who are current members of Congress of the conservative vein in particular are targets for our political opponents currently established in the White House.
Our great friend Congressman Fulcher joining us here. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, you get a chance to look across the country at the races. Obviously, people are talking about the top of the ticket, but let me get your insight. You talk to Jim Jordan. You're in the planning sessions. You travel across the country helping out conservatives and Republicans all over the country in close battleground races. How do you see the fight for the House and then the Senate, please?
I have to tell you that I'm optimistic. I really am, and I'm not just saying that. We try to measure the swing districts in particular, and right now, assuming that there's reasonable election security and assuming that we get the turnout that we think we're going to get, we feel very, very good about what's going to happen with the House majority. That should increase. Intel looks to me like somewhere between 5 and 10 seats, which is not a lot, but that's a lot bigger than what we have right now. And I think that's a conservative estimate, but we will see. That's what the objective numbers appear to show. It appears like we've got a good chance, better than 50%, of a very small positive majority for conservatives in the Senate. And so I feel optimistic about that. Regarding the presidency, Kevin, if he stays alive, and I don't say that sarcastically, I mean that sincerely, if President Trump stays alive, I think he has got the best chance of winning the presidency again, too. But he is not out of danger. This weaponization of thing, he's the poster child for that. How many lawsuits has he been through? Attempt on his life, at least one, and all of these other attacks. Tulsi Gabbard's one thing. I'm another thing, but what's happened to former President Trump is unmatched for anyone.
Indeed, our great friend Congressman Fulcher joining us. Congressman, Labor Day's over. By the way, I love the video. You did one where you had this incredible backdrop, a beautiful backdrop of course, our state of Idaho. So you've gotten recharged. You're ready to go. Obviously, I guess the big issue would be the continuing resolution to fund the government.
That's going to be next. You're exactly right. And what is going on is typically Congress is supposed to have 12 appropriation bills to fund government completed by the end of September. We were actually on track to do that before the disruption in the House over the McCarthy speakership kind of put a wrench in all of that. And so we're not going to get all 12 of those bills passed. I think we've got 4 of them passed so far. We'll work on some more before the end of the month. Excuse me. But this is going to boil down to a continuing resolution, which is a stopgap measure to fund the government. And my understanding of what's on the table there is a resolution that would fund the government through March. And the reason for that is to hopefully stop shenanigans by a lame dunk presidency, assuming there's going to be one, and have those dollars set so there can't be craziness between now and March. But the key there is that continuing resolution will also include what's called the SAVE Act, Kevin. The SAVE Act is a piece of legislation that says only citizens can vote. Now that's where this is going to get real dicey, because believe it or not, my friends on the other side of the aisle don't want to see that. So then think about that just for a minute. If you are not willing to support a piece of legislation that says only citizens can vote, where is your head on the whole border situation? If there was ever any validation about whether or not the border is a strategy, the open border is a strategy, this is playing out right now, because we're going to have a big floor fight. And my understanding is my friends on the other side of the aisle are pretty much lining up in unison to say they will not support this if it says non-citizens can't vote. So that's going to be the battle. I might add one last thing on this, is every single appropriation that the House has sent to the Senate, Chuck Schumer has refused to hear. And so there's another reason why there needs to be a changeover in leadership on the Senate side.
Well, it's so crucial. And could you imagine it will take a Republican House and a Republican Senate, along with President Trump, to really begin to get a handle on the deep state and really, not to be cliche here on KIDO Talk Radio, but make America great again, especially something that you're a massive part of, and that's energy and natural resources. You know, we're all of a sudden we're anti-fracking, but we're fracking. And, you know, I know you're very concerned about the cost of energy, whether it's election time or whether it's, post-Labor Day time.
That's exactly right. And, we've been very blessed in the state of Idaho, but what's going on nationally is we've got to pay attention to, Kevin. And if I may segue just a little bit here, I was able to tour some of the fire sites that we had in the northern part of the state here over the last week. And my goodness, the Wapiti fire took out 92,000 acres. The Gwen fire, 29,000. Flat fire, 4,000. And what they call the Texas fire up around Kendrick, Julietta. This is nothing new for the state of Idaho. We have we typically have hundreds of thousands of acres burn up, but I wanted to bring that up, and I apologize about the segue there. I wanted to bring that up because just to put back in front of people that it doesn't have to be that way. This is mostly on federal land. If we properly manage that, then it's a revenue generating, very healthy, environmentally friendly process. If we don't, then it burns up. We get the smoke we've had in recent days. We get the horrendous negative impact on wildlife and the environment. And then we spend hundreds of millions of dollars to try to suppress it. And so huge issue continues to be for Idaho. And we've got to make that better.
Well, and again, it's starting to look like Beijing around here. And the fires continue, and yet the federal government really doesn't do much to help us.
Oh, it's, we are, generally speaking, from a management standpoint, we are tenants in the state of Idaho. 63% of the land is federal. And this is a bigger and bigger fight for me and the rest of our delegation every year is to communicate to members across the nation. Here's the situation in Idaho and a few other western states that nobody else has to deal with in the way that we do in terms of managing the land under our own feet. And here's some of the ramifications and why the Midwest and the East needs to send money to the West to fight fires and to offset, PILT dollars and payment of taxes dollars and that type of thing. So anyway, it's a bigger and bigger issue. This is going to be coming to a head sooner rather than later.
Our great friend, Congressman Russ Fulcher, joining us. Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Obviously, we woke up Sunday morning to 6 more hostages killed by Hamas, execution style, before the IDF could get to them. And yet we still have the waffling of the Democratic Party, the waffling of the vice president, the waffling of the president. As someone who has staunchly supported Israel from the very beginning, your reaction to this, sir?
I hope the voting American public are paying attention on who is standing where on this issue, Kevin. Historically, when I say historically, during my lifetime, the Jewish community, generally speaking, has leaned more towards the Democrat side than the Republican side. But who's standing with them? Who has stood with them with these attacks on Israel from the get-go? It's been the Republicans. I think you're going to see a shift in that demographic as a function of this, and rightfully so. And, the best thing that comes out of this, when I say best, I'm being tongue-in-cheek, the best thing that comes out of our current administration on this whole issue is we want a ceasefire. We want to see the end of the fighting. Well, of course we want to see the end of the fighting, but what about the cause of it? What about the root of it? And who are we going to put our alliance with? And so, these aren't just Israeli hostages. These are American hostages, and we have a responsibility to put a stake in the ground and say, no, this is unacceptable. And anybody that generates terror like that, takes life, we're going to shut this down. We're going to end it. And so I just hope the American voting public is paying attention to where the sides land on this issue.
Congressman Fulcher joining us. Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. And here we have Ukraine. Now, you talk about, and you've been to Ukraine. You've detailed what you thought of the folks there. Here we have Ukraine. All of a sudden, the war has swung another way where they're capturing massive amounts of Russian territory. They want to go on the offensive. And now who knows what Putin's going to do. And never mind, I see them not succeeding on the other areas where Russia has taken the lands, I guess the Crimea and the other one. But Congressman Fulcher, your thoughts on Ukraine and where we go from here? Obviously, we don't want Putin to elevate this war, but just when you thought it was over, another twist.
Yeah, and when I look at this whole situation, you can't help but reflect back to say, what if? What if we wouldn't have had a change in the administration? And I think the answer there would have been there would be no war in Ukraine right now. There wasn't under President Trump, under different leadership, under strong American foreign presence, and there is as soon as that changed. And so I think that's the first and foremost lesson. Can America have an impact? Absolutely. And it's without firing a bullet, or for that matter, without sending bullets to be fired. That's the first and foremost thing. As is well known, I haven't supported the beyond the first major push on the funding to Ukraine for this war. I haven't supported that, and that's been not because I don't want to see Ukraine prevail. It's that we don't have a plan for success there. We don't have a plan. What does it mean to win there? Of course, nobody wants to see Putin get the old Soviet band back together, but we need to have a plan, and we don't have that. We need to have the resources, and quite frankly, we don't have that. We have sent dangerous levels of our own stockpiles for this effort, and we've sent dollars that have been unaccountable into let's face it, a relatively corrupt system in and of itself. And so I just don't want to see America as the face of this, American lives put at risk, and America's stockpile depleted to the point where we are unsafe ourselves. And that's where we're at with this. And that's not to say that there can't be a happy ending that comes out of it. But this is all a function of poor leadership in the first place. And, there's you don't see this administration out there defining and leading on how to wind things down. It's almost as if some of them want to see this continue for one reason or another. And I think that's just bad leadership.
Congressman Russ Fulcher joining us, Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, anything else that you would like to share with us here in Idaho?
Well, you touched on what's going to be in front of Congress here for the next month. And this is going to be the fight over the continuing resolution. And it will be whether or not that SAVE Act is included in this language, Kevin. And I just, we have a constitutional provision that says you've got to be a citizen to vote in this country. And then the legislation, and that's been deviated from, and the legislation that is going to be put forward will require that. And we've already seen states and the District of Columbia try to deviate from that, have non-citizens on the voting rolls. That's very dangerous and inappropriate, and it plays right into the current liberal strategy of changing the social fabric of America. So prayers and support that we can have that SAVE Act included in the budgetary measures moving forward. Only citizens should be voting in the United States of America.
No, that is common sense. It's sacred. And the fact that the Democrats want to do that is just another example of how out of touch they are in the world. And now you're back in the pretend world east of the Great River where the Democrats are relevant. I know you really enjoy being in Idaho where it's as it should be. The Democrats are irrelevant, sir.
Well, that is true. And just we can't ever take for granted just how blessed we are in Idaho. But we're also not immune from some of this stuff that's happening around the rest of the country. And so I want to thank you. I want to give you compliments on just how you have this forum where people can talk about this kind of thing and bring things up that, you know what, probably wouldn't come up any other way. And you've provided a forum for that, not just for friendlies, but for everybody to pipe in on this. And so compliments to you. Thank you for the opportunity and for what you do, Kevin.
Congressman Fulcher, we'll try to live up to that. I know you do, and you have a great day, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Our great friend, Congressman Fulcher. We'll get your reaction next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. I do appreciate Congressman Fulcher joining us. Coming up, Dave Petso. Coming up, Lars Larson. An action-packed day here on the program. Of course, time for your phone calls as well. But you go back to what Tulsi Gabbard said, where she just outed it, and Congressman Fulcher said it as well, that you have an administration that is using the intelligence networks against us. And we're not talking about crazy Alex Jones. We're not talking about Glenn Beck. Sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. We're talking about Tulsi Gabbard. We're talking about Congressman Fulcher, people that are in the arena. And how can you justify that? Remember the old days, the quaint days of the FISA warrant? Remember the old days of the Patriot Act? I think Butch Otter, when he was a congressman, warned of things like this. And we're seeing this now. I can remember under Obama where the Wetumpka, and it took me years to pronounce this correctly, the Wetumpka Tea Party, they were in fact targeted. And remember during the Clinton administration, where if you were conservative, and Sean Hannity likes to talk about this enough, and Glenn Beck as well, that you were audited. And you were never audited before, but you were because you were conservative. So essentially what we're seeing is the power of the media, the power of the government, the power of the incumbency used to quell dissent. That's why it's so important to have a voice, to be heard. And of course, that's why we're here for you. Kevin Miller in the morning. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say stop freaking, call Beacon today. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Tyler.
Hey, good morning, Kevin, from the Idaho Pizza Company studios. Traffic now. Crews are almost done clearing those crashes on eastbound I-84 between the Cole Overland and Orchard Street exits. As far as the rest of the freeway is concerned, it's looking pretty slow as you're making your way into Ada County from Canyon County and all the way into downtown Boise. If you have leaks, clogs, or other plumbing issues, Perfect Plumbing, Heating, and Air can handle your plumbing needs, big or small. Serving the Treasure Valley since 1984. They're trusted for exceptional results. Call or visit callperfectnow.com. With your traffic now, I'm Tyler on KIDO Talk.
Larson, I don't really know. I think we've done such a great job on today's show. We might just have to peace out for the rest of the week. I don't believe we're going to be able to match the content, the intensity that we have today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but you never know. Of course, getting ready for the big debate between Harris and Trump. The world awaits. Donald Trump on the road. And, here you have Congressman Fulcher talking about the Democrats want to let non-citizens vote, which is total hogwash, total BS. Did you ever think that you would live in a country where that would happen? Right? Crazy. Indeed. Awkward pause there as we're looking for something to load. We'll get to that in a minute. Phone number's here, 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Let's try this one more time. Hope springs eternal here.
About the American dream. They never mention it. They don't talk about the American flag. By the way, the American flag, we got some of the greatest congressman warriors here that you have anywhere. And congressmen, go to Congress soon, like immediately, but soon. We should give
here you go.
A 1-year sentence in jail to anybody that burns the American flag. You should do that. Mike, do it, Mike. Right? Do it.
Now, many people in the media are going to say, you can't do this. But what type of America do you want to live in? Kevin, we need to have the freedom to burn the American flag. That may be good for y'all in California, may be good for y'all in New York, maybe in Arizona, but not so much in Idaho. Especially, north of the whatever line? Is there like an official line that divides the state between the liberals in the south and the conservatives in the north? You talk to the folks from North Idaho, that's all they say is how conservative they are. Great. I wish we were that conservative down here. However, I think that we can hang with anybody in the country. But here you have the America under Donald Trump, and then you have this.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
There we have it already. The Commissioner, Kent Goldthorpe, he calls himself chopped liver. Well, we're going to see if Kent can really match the intensity of today. Like I said, this is the day to be listening to this program. If you missed it, you can go on the podcast. Congressman Fulcher, also Dave Petso, who I know Kent Goldthorpe, just like Bo, is a big fan of. Oh, they are fans of Petso. They love Dave Petso. Okay, hurrah. So Dave Petso will be on coming up next to talk about the economy and, the fake jobs report and everything else. And then Lars Larson, who's live today at 4, will join us as well. But really, what type of America would you want? This one.
You better thank a union member.
You better. I like that. You better.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Why do they say those stupid things? By the way, look, I'm not a flag burner, so I would be okay with this.
Talk about the American dream. They never mention it. They don't talk about the American flag. By the way, the American flag, we got some of the greatest congressman warriors here that you have anywhere. And congressmen, go to Congress soon, like immediately, but soon. We should give a 1-year sentence in jail to anybody that burns the American flag.
Crowd goes crazy in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Kind of like Allentown. Remember that Billy Joel song? If not, look it up.
Mike, do it, Mike.
Do it, Mike.
Right?
All right, Mike, get to it. Chop, chop.
That looks so bad at the Democrat National. I always call it Democrat. They want it to be called Democratic. I said, then change your name. They don't change their name. Sounds worse, so I use it. But at the Democrat National Convention, I watch those American flags burning all over the place. I think it's a disgrace. And they said it's unconstitutional to stop it. Like hell it is, okay? It's not unconstitutional.
Yeah, doesn't it just want to bring you back to the good old days where Donald Trump would go on X or Twitter or anywhere else and just tell it like it is? Could you imagine, once again, another Trump presidency? What it would mean for the liberals? They would go crazy over this. By the way, the fallout over the Arlington situation continues to resonate. We have Spencer Cox, who wants to be the governor of Utah one more time, whose role model is Brad Little. And apparently he was at Arlington with the president, and he apologized for being at Arlington. He apologized for being there and said it was inappropriate. However, do you go by the media's narrative, or do you go by the Trump campaign's narrative, or do you go by Senator Cotton's narrative and other people that have been there? So, by the way, Utah is not part of our jurisdiction, but there's an incredible election going on there because you have, does this sound familiar, conservatives that want a more conservative form of government than the current Cox administration. So here we have Spencer Cox now saying, my bad, my bad. We'll have more on that in a minute. Phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Look, I'm in favor of, what President Trump talked about. You burn the flag, you go to jail. Of course, we would need to build more jails, but I believe that would stop a lot of people from burning the American flag. To me, a great insult, a huge insult. to our great American heritage and for all those people that have fought for that flag, fought for this country. Coming up next, Joe Biden is in Pittsburgh. Does it really matter? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Pittsburgh, but on another note, I know a lot of people are talking about Boise State football, and we wish them well over the weekend, though it was great to see them win, and it's just kind of funny to watch some of the local folks in the media get defensive about people being critical of the team. And just like with the Democrats, it's as if they're part of the team. No, the media's job is to be objective. And, you know, you got a big game this week, unfortunately. And this is how money corrupts. And you're going to go, Kevin Miller, I've got an RV. Kevin Miller, I'm retired. Kevin Miller, I've got this, I've got that. And look, if you've done well, I am so happy for you. On the other hand, you take a look at how money has corrupted college football. At one time, people could afford to go to games. I think you can still go to, like, the College of Idaho. They provide a very good product. But Boise State, you know, they've got to keep up with the Joneses. I mean, they're playing the University of Nike this weekend. And unfortunately, if you don't have, what is it called, Peacock, you're not going to get the game. That's right. It's not going to be on any of the cable channels, which we all pay too much for. It's not going to be anywhere. It's going to be on the Peacock. So if you're a fan of the Peacock and you pay for that from NBC, then you're going to be able to watch the game. If not, by the way, if you're on DirecTV, again, ESPN and all their other channels are blacked out because of the money. It's just crazy how at one time we used to be maybe naive to think about the people played for the team and played for the sport and everything else. And yet today it's all about the money, sadly. And, you know, we proudly are distracted by this. We proudly move on, but just an opine to the good old glory days. Kind of like in the days when Joe Biden was the president of the United States. What's that? He still is the president of the United States? I didn't know that because the last time I saw Joe, he was on a beach having a good time. And by the way, if I'm the vice president, if I'm Kamala, do I really want to be seen with Joe?
I know she'll be a good president. I've watched her when all the experts, foreign and domestic policy, would give us advice. Then we'd sit alone in a room. And she has a backbone like a ramrod.
She has a backbone like a ramrod.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Yeah, sure. This ain't 76, lady. Anyway, back to Joe Biden, who is in Pittsburgh trying to be relevant. Pittsburgh, one of the only places in the world that loves Joe Biden.
She has the moral compass of a saint. This woman knows what she's doing. Folks, I promise you, if you elect Kamala Harris as president, it'll be the best decision you will have ever made.
The best is the
Kamala believes as I do. The unions are the spine of this economy. She'll be historic.
Yeah, the unions are going to be wiped out by AI and Skynet and everything else, unfortunately.
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave.
Okay, I apologize for that. It's just too much. Thankfully, we have Tyler Traffic to cleanse the palate of sweet Camilla or bitter Camilla or Camilla. Good morning, Tyler.
Hey, good morning, Kevin, from the Idaho Pizza Company studios. Traffic now. Crews are almost done clearing those crashes on eastbound I-84 between the Cole Overland and Orchard Street exits. As far as the rest of the freeway is concerned, it's looking pretty slow as you're making your way into Ada County from Canyon County and all the way into downtown Boise. If you have leaks, clogs, or other plumbing issues, Perfect Plumbing, Heating, and Air can handle your plumbing needs, big or small. Serving the Treasure Valley since 1984. They're trusted for exceptional results. Call or visit callperfectnow.com. With your traffic now, I'm Tyler on KIDO Talk Radio.
All right, Tyler, appreciate that. Tyler in for Dave.
I can remember, and this was one, Republicans came up to me in one of my campaigns, and they said, Tim is in the pocket of organized labor. I said, that's a damn lie. I am the pocket. I am the pocket. And I told them, if you want to attack me for standing up for collective bargaining, for fair wages, for safe working conditions, for health care and retirement, you roll the damn dice. I'll take my chances on that. I'll take my chances.
You know, it's weird that if you're a member of organized labor, you really have no home anymore. Remember that Ford and the UAW and Chrysler, that's not Chrysler, it's, what is it, Solaris now, or I don't even know what the name of the company is. The Stedmans, or I don't even know what do you call it? That is the Ford, that is that was Chrysler, that was Dodge. They don't even call it Dodge anymore. They call it Ram. If you're a union member, why would you believe the Bidens? They've sold out to the Chinese. They've sold out to EVs. And Minnesota Waltz, what does he know? Minnesota Waltz is, if you're a member of organized labor today, you're an endangered species. You're an endangered species when you take a look at this. And it's because of the government. They want to switch everything to EVs. We all know that EVs are not the answer. They may be for some, but they're not for others. Certainly when we're getting, we've turned our great manufacturing facilities into assembly centers under Joseph Biden.
8 years ago, how many times you hear about we can no longer be the manufacturing capital of the world? Where the hell is that written? We are the greatest manufacturing county in the world, state in the world, city in the world. We're going to remain that way. I'll tell you.
Yeah, but the little factoid he doesn't tell you about is at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. 2 words for this.
Thanks, Obama.
Barack Obama, and we could throw in Bill Clinton as well, and George Bush with NAFTA and GATT and everything else. These were the people that decided that America could not manufacture. If you have been with us through the Obama years, and that's where we were put here in Idaho to take on Obama. And we took on Obama, and we talked about Obama, and we talked about NAFTA, we talked about GATT, we talked about how they offshored everything. Everything, all of our jobs, all of our manufacturing jobs to other countries. Westinghouse. Remember where we would get taxed during the Obama years, and Westinghouse, General Electric, and everyone else did not get taxed to the same degree. Because Obama gave corporate subsidies to all the manufacturers that would go to China. If you moved to China, you were great. If you stayed in this country, you were a dope. And here we have Joe Biden saying, we're going to talk about bringing manufacturing back. Joe, you guys were responsible for this. And if it hadn't been for the pandemic and Tucker Carlson saying they own all of our prescription drugs. In the old days, we had something called the Marshall Plan, where we rebuilt Europe. In the old days, we had the Eisenhower Interstate Program based on the Autobahn in Germany. We did great things. We are a people of great heritage. Why have we not brought back our pharmaceutical manufacturing to this country? Why have we not brought back the ability to be self-sufficient? It's like a lot of us. I don't know about you, but I'll say this. I mean, how many of us think about maybe it's time to get a generator? If we watch Newsmax or Fox News, it's, 4 Patriots. They're going to give you a free solar panel and maybe some vittles if you, in fact, decide to get a generator. And then all of a sudden we don't get a generator and we're without power. We knew the power outages were coming. One of the things that gets me just boiling is the fact in Boise that we've had power outages here. Here at the world headquarters of the Kevin Miller program. And again, a lot of people have problems with the George Armstrong Custer building. It seemed like a good idea at the time. All of a sudden, what do we have? We have a power outage. Now, thankfully, we've got the backup facilities, the backup generators. But on a Friday during the Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic, there's no reason for the power to be out. and nobody sits back and does anything about it. We just go, well, we got the power back on. It's like when we're talking about bringing everything back to America. We need to bring those jobs back, not just to employ Americans, but for our own national security and national stability. We'll talk more about that coming up with Dave Petso. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Appreciate you listening on the podcast, the KIDO Talk Radio app. Good morning. Petso Center, once again, his beloved markets on an unbelievable winning streak. So I guess this is just going to be the applause segment of the program. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. Good morning. Don't applause too soon, Kevin. We're having a rough day out there, so off to a bad start.
Just when I get excited, I'm always disappointed. So we'll see how this goes. But, I do want to give you the gotcha question early on, if you don't mind.
Wow. Okay. It's early, but yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. So I know you're not a fan of JoJo, but his proponents, his acolytes say that, and you could tell me whether I'm full of it or not, that the stock market has doubled under JoJo. It was around 20 when he came in. It's around 40 now. Is that true?
Boy, I don't think it's doubled, but actually, I'll tell you what we'll do. At the break, I'll just go ahead and look that up for you. But no, it's not doubled. It's done well, but it's not doubled. And when it comes to the stock market, we all like to think everything happens because of what exactly is happening right now. But if that was true, then, for example, why in the world, if it's corporate greed that's causing inflation, why hasn't it been that way for 40 years? If it's really those horrible grocery stores marking up items, how come it just showed up over the past 3 years? And then when we turn the corner, and I'm not just trying to find things that are wrong with Joe's policies, but why did we not have inflation before? These are things that, we didn't have it immediately. These are lagging effects. And then when you inject all this money in the system and then on top of that, that's when you get that. If it wasn't that the corporate America was doing well enough to offset that, we know what happened in the 70s, Kevin. It was a horrible stock market. It went sideways for 16 years. 16 years. During the late 60s and all the way through the 70s until we got Ronald Reagan. The stock market was actually down. So it was not a good time at all when we have inflation. So with that in our face, that's the one thing you can clearly attribute to Joe's policies. We can attribute and talk about all the chaos around the world. But economically, the inflation was caused by Joe pumping too much money into the system. It already had too much money in the system. And it just couldn't take it anymore. We get inflation, and that was the only outcome. But because of the strength of the U.S. corporations, the market didn't tank. It did have a tough time in 22, no question, when rates were rising. We had a down year. That's why I'm quite sure it's not doubled, Kevin, but we'll get you a better number.
Well, close to doubling. It was around 20, and then it's around 40. That's what the Biden people are talking about. But, Joe Biden is in Pittsburgh, and now we have not only Joe Biden there, Kamala Harris. She was in Detroit saying to everybody that we owe everything to the union people. If you were a union person, would you be down with this administration, considering, the labor negotiations, the push for EVs? What's your take?
No, I don't know that. I mean, people, it's hard to say, hey, this is your life. Now you're in the union, man. And you're in the middle of, let's say, Cleveland. And all you do is you grow up around union people. They talk about unions. That's all it is, right? And so everything is filtered through whatever that filter says, which is union is the only thing that operates. But, Kevin, it doesn't make any sense. These are people that they are so far from your leftist ESG woke group. I can't imagine that they're ever in the same room. So to think that this is the leftists are pro-union, they're not pro-union. They're pro-vote for me. They're pro-teachers union. I totally get that. As long as it's white collar and they, and apparently they don't drink beer or whatever it is and drive pickup trucks, then you can be in the leftist, union. But you can't be one of these folks that are, driving around in their pickup, trying to weld and all those other things, truck driving, things like that. Those are Donald Trump guys. They are, and of course they are. They were Ronald Reagan's guys too.
Dave Petso joining us, Money Matters, Saturdays 8 to 10 on KIDO Talk Radio. So, what should we be looking out for?
Kevin, the market is, it has been settling back down until today, right? But it looks like to me that we are very concerned that we really are tipping into a recession or an incredibly slow growth period. And markets just don't like it. They don't like it when there's a political uncertainty, there's economic uncertainty. And boy, is there political uncertainty. We don't have any idea what Kamala Harris is going to do or not do. She just wants to be president, and she's joy. This is the epitome of joy. So that's it. There's literally on her website, running for president of the United States, it seems it's okay with people that she doesn't even have a policy stance. I find this bizarre, and I don't know how people can make long-term investment decisions when we have a very tight election and one of the candidates refuses, or I guess they're still trying to figure out what polls well in Pennsylvania for deciding what our policies are going to pretend to be. So we know who she is. I think it scares Wall Street. We know who Donald Trump is. That doesn't scare Wall Street. I think that as we get closer to the election and get more definition of who's going to be our next president, I think the markets can quiet down. But I really do think, and I'm really don't usually put this much on an election, but this is a policy election. We get to go further left. We've seen what JoJo's policies do and how big a problem this is going to be long term. We're going to raise taxes. We're going to raise regulation. We are already at 50% of our GDP is taken through taxes and regulation, 50%. That is unsustainable, and they want to take it to the next level. It's a frightening thing, and I don't think Wall Street's going to like it.
Well, what does that mean as far as, people talk about our debt and our deficit, and, eventually the chickens are going to come home to roost on that?
Yeah, and I agree with that, Kevin, but we can't sit around for all of our life and say you can't have deficits when we have. It won't work when you get to X, Y, or Z of your gross domestic output every year. Japan's been exceeding that for over 30 years. So it is one of those things where it is a problem, but I think we need to quit arguing that the chickens are going to come home to roost and start talking about the moral implications of burying our descendants in debt. It's morally wrong. Most people say, I want my kids to live better than me. This generation, this group of people, humans on the planet, is saying, I want to make sure they don't have any future at all. All I want to do is I want to get elected, or I don't want to give up any of my stuff, or I want to not worry about any benefits here. And I sure as heck don't want to go to work, but I want. And when we do that, I think it changes everything. What do you mean we're morally bankrupt? Well, we are. This is about our kids and our grandkids and our unborn children that are going to be saddled with this kind of debt. And this kind of world we're leaving. And instead of running around and worrying about EVs and how it's going to save the planet, how about we talk about how we're burying people economically in paying off our debts of living high today?
Our great friend Dave Petso joining us, the Petso Center. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Another issue that a lot of people don't want to address is the current war between Israel and Hamas and Hezbollah and how that's going to impact our energy.
And we see it today, Kevin, after this whole situation amps up. We've seen oil down sharply in the past little while and very sharply today, almost 4%. And when you see that and you say, how in the world is that possible when you have all of this tension in the Middle East? And you and I grew up in an era where if there was any saber rattling going on in the Middle East, we saw oil prices jump, right? Well, it's because the United States is that huge outlier that we are energy independent and actually an exporter. It makes a big difference. We saw what we were able to do with natural gas in spite of the policies of this administration in helping Europe. That has helped stabilize energy prices around the world. But I also am afraid it signals slow economic growth around the world. We have been slow, and part of that is because we just simply can't. You cannot grow fast. You can't do it with increasing regulations. The government takes so much, and they take even more in Europe. So when we see that and we see the slow growth Europe, that's what we're asking. That's what we're asking Kamala to do. Turn us into Europe, please. Quicker is better if we just turn into a super slow growth Europe and we don't innovate anything. That is what socialist policies do. And I'm afraid that this energy situation is more about slow growth than it is about any saber rattling going on in the Middle East.
Well, and then let's not forget Europe. We still have, now we talked to Congressman Fulcher last hour. Now all of a sudden Ukraine is ahead, and now Ukraine wants more. They want to end Russia. Obviously, we don't want World War III, and the markets don't want that as well.
They don't. Yeah, but I don't have any idea what the Biden administration's policy is. I know that they've been clear because they always say we've been really clear. That's what they ask whenever a question is, or they answer. We've been really clear. Then why do we keep asking the question, what is your policy? That they are supportive of Ukraine, but they don't give them the weapons to win. It's like their policy is stalemate. Let somebody else deal with this. It's like, what was your policy in Afghanistan? They're not going to say it was unadulterated retreat, but they never had a policy, did they? Just get out. It wasn't thoughtful. It wasn't. Let's at least take our weapons with us. Let's let people die that were supportive of us. Nobody says that, but there's no policy. So, Kevin, I struggle with this a lot because I don't know what their policy is with Israel. I don't know what their policy is with energy. I don't know what their policy is with Ukraine. I don't know what their policy is about anything at all, except we're really clear. They say that a lot, and I understand the Democratic Party is about joy. That's all I know what their policy is. And I think it's just very disconcerting to markets, to business to make future plans.
Coming up next, we'll talk about your favorite candidate. That is Donald Trump. Our great friend Dave Petso is with us talking about your money with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. For joining us. We never really had Dave do that. Hi, this is Dave Petso, and you're listening to my little buddy Kevin Miller, but maybe we can talk him into doing that.
Well, I would love to. And, actually it was delightful to meet your wife. So that was the first time I've met her. So
yes, she actually exists.
She does. I know. I clearly you were keeping her out of sight. And but anyway, it was very nice to meet her. So
well, we appreciate
thanks for coming in Saturday.
Yeah. Well, Corey, it was extra work. We never come in to socialize. You love to work on Saturdays.
I do. Well, you must, because I know you do. Even though you do it often from home. So I know how hard you work, Kevin. You do work very hard. People don't understand how hard it is to do a radio show every single day. Well, and on top of that, run the station, and because you really do. So,
well, we appreciate you, and you are our historian. So, as you know, the Love Fest is over because you know what's coming next, don't you?
Oh no, I don't. We want to talk gold or something really cool.
No, we're going to talk about your beloved president, Donald Trump.
Oh, hey, I'm his biggest fan now because we know who's running.
Yes. What do you make of Donald Trump? Is he? People have been very critical of him, but he continues to lead or not lead. I mean, if you were advising him, what would you say?
Oh, it's the simplest election ever, but it's Donald Trump. So I'm really afraid that he's going to. He certainly is working on figuring out a way to blow this thing. It's simple. It's just simple. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And along those lines, just say nothing but that. Nothing but that. How were your grocery prices? How was the employment situation? Of course we had a pandemic. When they say, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. Of course we had a pandemic. And we did our best to do that. And since the pandemic, with all of this administration's rules and regulations, we can't come back. And all they brought back instead of prosperity was inflation. Next question. Oh, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? How about energy independence? Let's go drill. Next question. Oh, you want to get rid of the Senate. Why? I don't understand. This has served our country very well for 250 years. Next question. Let's go on. Instead of talking about whether she has a high IQ or not, whether she's an awful human being and cackles like a witch. Of course she does. Who cares? When you say things like that, it diminishes everything. It's candidate Trump I don't like. It's not policy Trump. And I just don't understand it. It's like everybody has to be telling him, just talk about the policies. That's it. But he won't. He just can't shut up. And that is a frustration, as you can tell by my voice. I do think his policies are just fine. And he has the easiest path to becoming president of any president running that I can think of in history. Maybe FDR had a couple of years there, a couple of runs that he had were a layup, but Reagan in the second term, that was the easiest ever against Mondale. But this is ridiculous. I don't know how it can be close. This lady has inconceivably bad, out of favor policies, and only Donald Trump can mess this up, and he is.
Dave Petso joining us. So how do you see this election playing out?
I think Donald Trump wins. I think that somehow they're going to muzzle him. I think that somehow she's going to actually have to talk about her policies. When you actually have one or two people coming out and going, maybe the presidential election is more about policies than joy. We maybe want to have a policy position, and the website has none, and everything that you've kind of tossed out there is a flip-flop of where you were 2 years ago. Maybe we got to have some answers. I think Trump, it's still his to lose. It's just disappointing that he can't just focus on those things, because when asked about the border, Trump wins. Ask about the economy, Trump wins. Ask about anything outside of abortion, Trump wins.
Dave
and
Petso,
the world is on fire. How do we not notice this? Go ahead.
Dave Petso joining us, Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let me ask you this one, though. Are people stupid? I mean, you just basically outlined the common sense things, but have we been programmed that we need to give Kamala the thing because she's the first woman, the first black woman, the first Asian woman, the first Indian woman, and we just all need to feel touchy and feely? And if we go back to that song, Cult of Personality, and really it doesn't matter what you say or what you do. That's basically what we're seeing with her. The Democratic base was so depressed because of Biden. I mean, $500 million, maybe $750 million already dedicated to her, in spite of just how bad that administration has been.
It is, and how bad she is. I mean, she's done nothing in her life, right? I mean, she was a terrible senator for a very short period of time. And so all of her policies, all of her votes, all of her record is absolutely terrible. Kevin, you bring up a good point, and I don't like to say that because I think that Ronald Reagan don't underestimate the American people, and he didn't. He believed in us. And I don't want to underestimate the American people, but I do want to underestimate people under 30, certainly, because of what's happened and happening on our college campuses. So I do think it's a lot about touchy-feely, weird stuff. And I don't think they've been educated. They don't understand history. They don't understand economics at all. I mean, it's hopeless. In talking with some of them, when I know some of that's just funny. You find the right people that are have no idea how many Supreme Court justices and things like that are when you do the man on the street type of stuff. I get it, but it is also really comes out when we look at the numbers of how many people are coming out of high school that can't read, that can't function, that can't. The people that are employing people are out there trying to figure out how do we get these people educated to do the simplest tasks. That our education system has failed us unless you're a left-wing liberal, then they've done a great job. And that is one of the fundamental problems we have. But I don't want to say that older people don't understand how the world works. But I do think there's a little bit too much touchy-feely, particularly in suburban women who are I think, maybe I'm wrong here because I'm not a suburban woman, but I think safety of their family all the time I've been around was the most important thing. And streets and defunding police and what's going on overseas is all done by the liberals. And so I don't understand how that vote goes, oh, they're taking all my reproductive rights away, when obviously they're not. But at the same time, that's the most important thing, not safety for their families. In the end, I got to believe that that's Donald Trump's vote.
Well, you bring up a very good point. And the point we were trying to get at is the people that are under 35, that they don't watch the media, they don't read. That's not condemning them. It's an observation, an accurate one. They get everything from TikTok, controlled by the Chinese. So quite frankly, all they get is Kamala HQ, and she's up there and dancing, the cackling, and everything else.
Yeah, there's no serious discussion. If there is, it's a minority of 35-year-olds. There is no serious discussion. It's how does everybody think? It's a group think. It's a social media push. And you're absolutely right, Kevin. It is absolutely frightening that's how people measure their leaders, is how we can put out a social media message without any clear thinking. People like me just shake their head and go, it is not okay to just sit around and watch Social Security disintegrate. It is not okay to sit there and watch our deficits go up to the point where we don't know what's going to happen or when, but it's not okay. This is not okay stuff, and we're not allowed to have a discussion about it because people are not wanting to have a discussion about it. They just want to talk about joy, and it's so. This is so weird. I know older people that I don't know how the Democrats could possibly appeal to anybody over the age of 2, but they do, but certainly over the age of 30, when they are talking about joy. When you have some maturity, you have some ability to look around. You've lived life somewhere, and you know life can be hard, and it can be harsh. And all you want to do in your president is talk about joy, and you don't want to talk about policy. How do you vote for that person? How do you get excited for that person? This is weird, and it's frightening, honestly, that this is the level of discourse we have.
Anything else you'd like to share with us, Dave Petso?
Oh, Kevin, we're out of this earnings season, shifting it back to the markets. All we're going to do is talk this week about the jobs number coming up, and it's absurd. There's much more going on out there, but I don't like what's going on. I just don't like the turmoil globally. I don't like the turmoil in our politics right now, and there's no great earnings reports coming that are going to be able to shift that tone. So I'm not saying bail out of the market. I would never say that, because being all or none is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. It really freezes people, and when they, even if they get it right one time, then they think they're right the rest of their life. It's just stay the course, yes, but I would not be real aggressive in here at all. It just doesn't strike me as the time to be super aggressive with your investments.
Dave Petso, thank you, sir. You have a great day.
Have a great day yourself, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you. Our great friend Dave Petso. We'll get your reaction next. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. They say stop freaking, call Beacon. Beacon Plumbing today. Kevin Merrill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio Traffic. Good morning, Tyler.
Hey, good morning, Kevin from the Idaho Pizza Company Studios. Traffic now. Crews are finished clearing that crash on eastbound I-84 between the Cole Overland and Orchard Street exits. As far as the rest of the freeway is concerned, you will see pockets of slowdowns between the Karcher-Midland interchange in Nampa and the Flying Y in Boise, so give yourself plenty of time to get to work this morning. Mike Miniger's Auto Body, locally owned and operated, servicing your collision needs from minor dings to major accidents since 1982. Call Mike Miniger's Auto Body or visit BoiseAutoBody.com. With your traffic now, I'm Tyler on KIDO Talk.
436 580-KIDO. So appreciate you joining us. Do appreciate just the big newsmakers that we've had. Do apologize to Hannah in Mountain Home. Wanted to talk to us about flag burning. Sorry we couldn't get to you, Hannah. We appreciate you listening on 580 AM or 107.5 FM or the free KIDO Talk Radio app. And some interesting comments. And if you missed any of the program, we'll have it for you in the podcast. You had Congressman Fulcher on today, Dave Petso on today, Lars Larson coming up. But again, at 580 KIDO, it's your time. And we take a look at, we don't all have to be, amateur economists to figure out that something strange is going on with the economy, where we have employers in Boise, employers in Napa shutting the doors. And many of us, and it's funny, if you're a millennial, you probably remember the Great Recession in 2008 as the defining point of your life. For us that are a little older, or maybe a lot older, that was just one bump in the road. As Dave Petso used to say, back in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, it was a recession every couple of years. Now, because we have, quantum loaning or quantum easing or quantum physics or quantum leap, whatever they call it, we don't appear to have those things. But, as our great friend Senator Crapo has said for years and years and years on this program, the debt and the deficit could be our undoing. We have the climatists talk about, what do they talk about? The global warming is going to be the end of us. Climate change is going to be the end of us. You notice they don't call it global warming anymore. They call it climate change. Well, unless the Chinese, the Indians, the Iranians, in other words, the rest of the world give a rip about the climate, it doesn't really matter what we do. Now, I guess it's something is better than nothing is the whole idea of it. But climate change is not the biggest threat. National security perhaps is not the biggest threat. It's what happens when we run up our credit cards too much. It's what motivates us to go to work is to pay off our debt. And the fact that we have people that, will give you a loan. No one is going to loan anything to the U.S. government. And unless the loan situation is taken care of. And how does it start? As we talked about with Congressman Fulcher, we're still at post-COVID spending levels. There's no reason why we should not go back to pre-COVID levels. Pre-COVID levels were insanity. But are you kidding me? To not all of a sudden say to ourselves, it's time to stop. Have you seen the movie Margin Call? Okay, the movie Margin Call, it's based on when the market collapsed. It's a fictionalized thing of what happens. Now, unlike The Big Short, which is based on the real market collapse, I love Margin Call. Do you know why I love Margin Call? I'll tell you why. You're looking up from your phone. Thank you, Bo. The reason why I love Margin Call is it's so opposite our life here. Very rare do you see people in Idaho wearing ties. In fact, most people don't trust people in Idaho who wear ties. Now, maybe it's part of your job, but we don't trust people that wear ties. So everybody there is Wall Street, starched shirts, starched ties, expensive clothes, all sorts of things. And they predict that the market is going to tank. So what do? They sell everything at losses, but they save their company. In the United States of America, we continue to have this insane strategy of spending. And you don't have to be an economist. And again, I don't even know what a tranche is, but it's where they bundle up the good loans and the bad loans and they disguise everything. And it literally almost tanked the market. Cash for clunkers. We're going to give you loans. We're going to give all these loans to banks. Even Wells Fargo that didn't want one, didn't need one. They were told to do it for the sake of stability. And so in Margin Call, they get out before everything blows up. Kevin Spacey, when he was good Kevin Spacey, before he was bad Kevin Spacey, now he says he's good Kevin Spacey again. It's a remarkable movie. And unfortunately, our federal government does not have the same standards that the movie Margin Call does, which is you need to get out now. We need to all of a sudden start being responsible. And we have this massive amount of government spending, but we take a look at places that are nonprofits, charities, that exceed exceptionally well without government funding. Why can't the government be more like them? Ron Grant joins us now. Ron, good to have you with us.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
Good to be with you.
Ron, let's talk a little bit about how do we keep the money safe. We're talking about money.
Yeah, and it's important, Kevin, because you want to retire someday. You want to enjoy the living. You want to enjoy all that hard work that you did, and you got to have money to do it. And a pension-like product is the way to go, where you can get a lifetime income where you can't outlive. My clients and I, we sleep at night knowing that our money is 100% protected out of the Wall Street casino, and that we can get a lifetime income that we can't outlive. And then when we've passed away, of course, our beneficiaries will get the balance. On talk radio for over 14 and a half years, doing just that, educating people on how to keep their money safe.
Well, Ron, that's easier said than done, but you like to communicate. How can people get a hold of you?
Got a great educational website that I've set up that has articles on it that they can read. There's videos there that they can take a look at. They can download the free book, 10 Things to Know About Retirement Income, and then they can email me from the site if they'd like. That's safer, moneyspecialist.com. And, of course, they can always call me. Let's have a conversation right here in the Treasure Valley about how to keep that money safe and guaranteed. 208-660-1372.
Ron, we appreciate that. You have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
All right. Thank you, Ron. Phone number's here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. As I said before, it's really down to the economy and the Republicans and the Democrats. Somebody has to act like an adult. Somebody has to say that for the good of the country, the good of the nation, we have to do the right thing. And it's not making the illegals legal. It's not allowing the illegals to vote. It's enforcing our laws. It's setting a standard. As we talked about with Dave Petso, I get very, very scared when all of a sudden we're thinking, well, I'm getting stuff on TikTok. Well, I'm getting stuff on this thing. I'm getting stuff on everything else. Instead of reading a newspaper, I know what you're going to say, or a digital publication, or something of that nature. You're going to go, well, Kevin, those are antiquated these days. But reading helps form critical thinking, like our conversations that we have each and every day. I don't know about you, but I listen to talk show hosts, news talk hosts, sports hosts, and I find myself engaging with them, whether it's on TV or especially in the spoken word on radio. I love to talk back. Sometimes people call in, sometimes people don't, but I love to engage back and forth. That helps your mind. When you're watching a video, with all due respect to the video people, that doesn't really, it may send some dopamine your way. It may make you feel good and funny and ha, 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 but is it really going to make you think? That's where we are today. If you're a thinking person, secure the border, get rid of the illegals, fix the debt and the deficit, and really, you take a look at which candidate is more qualified to do it, which candidate can actually do this. Donald Trump, who has saved America, or the current vice president, who really is riding a misguided wave of cultural cult of personality, where because of her uniqueness in the ethnicity department, all of a sudden everybody thinks that this is great.
So, I've been hearing about you incredible young leaders for quite some time, from the players to those who are bringing joy to everybody in the stands, to the music that you guys are creating. And so we wanted to come by just to let you know that our country is counting on you. All of you. You are leaders. By the very fact that you all are here in this room, doing what you do at this incredible school, doing it as one big team, understanding all of the different parts that fit together to create a team. You are doing some of the best.
She reminds me of somebody on Sesame Street. Think about that. By the way, she wanted to welcome to everybody to the Role Model Club.
And I will tell you, I was in a band when I was your age. So I know a little bit about coach knows about the players, right? And all that you all are doing, it requires a whole lot of rehearsal, a whole lot of practice, long hours, right? Sometimes you hit the notes, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes you hit the note, sometimes you don't. Brandon in Meridian. Good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Brandon.
Hey there. Hey, comment about your social media or versus reading the news. The problem with that is we've grown to not trust the media. The last 15 years, they have manipulated us, and it's so clear and so obvious now. I mean, this whole thing with Kamala, right? She got 1% of the vote running for president. As vice president, she's the worst rated vice president, and now she's the greatest thing on earth. And it's just like, I mean, we need a new hashtag, not buying it. That's the problem with getting our news from traditional news, is they are compromised and we can't trust them anymore. And so we've got to kind of dig deeper for other news sources. The other thing I kind of want to touch on is I have a lot of people I know and friends that only get their news from mainstream and traditional news, and they have no clue what's really going on. And that's the scary part. These are good people. These are good Christians. But they trust the mainstream media because that's really the only source they go to. And I just want to encourage everybody out there to reach out to other sources. Go to X, go to Twitter, go to places that are not being censored. Google is being censored big time. There are certain things you can type in, certain stories, legitimate stories. Even, like, for example, during the whole we've now come to know that the Hunter Biden laptop was real. Whether or not that was that important or if it really should have affected the election or not, it's kind of a moot point. The fact is that they were able to censor that story across all the media from getting out. And that's the big story, is that if you type in, especially during that time, if you typed in any keywords regarding Hunter Biden laptop, there were literally no results. They didn't come up. The only things that do come up are things that refute it. And that's another way you can tell if things are being censored or not, is if you type in legitimate stories and all you see is the negative to refute it, but there's not a single link to anything that actually maybe gives a little more information, then you can literally know that that story is being censored and that you might want to pay attention to that story.
Brandon, great thoughts. Thank you very much. And of course, when we have the government encouraging censorship as well, scary times that we're living in. 2 words for you. Thanks, Obama.
5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
And good morning. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. We want to thank our friends at windowworldboise.com for bringing us that clip. There we have the vice president with her Detroit speak, not to be confused with her Southern speak, not to be confused with her Midwest speak. Boy, she's got a lot of speaks, a lot of accents for someone who was from the state of California and continues to be from the state of California. By the way, politics, getting into the vibe of the NFL, where we have a San Francisco 49er receiver that was shot, almost killed, hospitalized. Now we have a member of the Philadelphia Eagles slamming the NFL for putting a game in Brazil, saying it's crazy, the crime rate there. I told my family, do not come down here. Well, even the vaunted NFL that lives in the age of woke, that lives in the age of don't worry, let's be happy. We're sending teams to Brazil. That's going to be on that goofy Peacock again, which will be where you can get the Boise State game this week. This guy's smart. True. You know, he's not happy about going to Brazil.
One, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. But, man, I do not want to go to Brazil. And you want to know why? I'm here to tell you why. They already told us not to leave the hotel. They told us we can't do too much going on because the crime rate is crazy. You know what I'm saying? I'm like...
Yeah, I know what you're saying. The crime rate is crazy in Brazil.
NFL, why would y'all want to send us somewhere with the crime rate this high and like we got the country? So, you know, the first thing people think is like something terrible can possibly happen. I told my family, do not come down there because, hey, I'm not going to be nowhere to be found. Really, I'm going to be in a hotel chilling, minding my business, playing my game after a long 9.5-hour flight. So I don't have no intentions on doing that. I'm going to eat hotel food. I'm doing everything. But
now, this guy is legit, where he's speaking about, I'm going to have the hotel food, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. On the other hand, why in the world would you, a 9.5-hour flight, do Brazilian people like the NFL? Talk about a waste, but even the NFL players are going, this is a dumb move. And what type of government do they have in Brazil? Similar to the one we're trying to put in here. More on that in a minute. KIDO Talk Radio traffic with Tyler.
Hey, good morning. Kevin from the Idaho Pizza Company Studios. Traffic now. You will see pockets of slowdown on the freeways between about the 10-mile road exit and around the Cloverdale overpass. Other than that, it's pretty smooth sailing into downtown Boise. What if your bank paid you? Get paid to bank when you open a new checking account at Horizon Credit Union. Put some extra cash in your pocket and visit hzcu.org/getpaid to find out how. With your traffic now, I'm Tyler on KIDO Talk Radio.
All right, thank you, Tyler. High today of 85, low tonight 58, high tomorrow 89. And then back to the 90s, but let's enjoy the great weather. Hopefully the smoke will clear. And like I said, Congressman Fulcher earlier today talking about the fires and the federal government's negligence. If you missed that interview, you can get that on our podcast. Coming up next, we hear from him once a week, but you can catch him daily at 4 o'clock. Our friend Lars Larson breaks down the big political news of the day with me, Kevin Miller, and you on KIDO Talk Radio. Lars, great to have you with us.
Hey, Kevin, how did Labor Day weekend treat you?
Not bad. I'm just wondering if we're ever going to have, will this one day be like Flag Day? Because how many people are actually going to have jobs if Kamala gets in?
I think that's a great question because there's no indication that she plans to change the policies that she's got. I mean, that the Biden administration adopted that caused massive inflation and has now caused what appears to be a giant economic crisis. And I don't know any other way to characterize it. In fact, I don't think any of us really knows what's coming at us right now because you say, well, it's like you're driving down the highway in a car, and it starts making all kinds of strange noises, but you're still going along at the speed limit, and things seem to be running. But there are all these indications that it may not keep running the way it has been, and you know how easily things can be tipped over. Look at 2008 and the way that went, with people still arguing about what actually caused it. So what happens? And then we've got the brand new weight of all these illegal aliens in the country and the massive crime that they brought, which can't be good, not just for the individual people who are, assaulted by illegals, but also imagine what happens to most cities when you have all this extra crime, all brought from a brand new population of people. And Kamala Harris's her former position on it, allegedly, because she says she never gives up her principles, but she had said she wanted to decriminalize people coming into this country. And guess what's happened? People come into the country and they commit crimes. And so what do you do about that? There's a story this morning that in New York City, 75% of the arrests in Manhattan for violent crimes, for things like, physical assault, rape, murder, things like that. 75% of the arrests are illegal aliens. Well, New York has a population of 8 million, just over 8 million people. And I don't imagine that illegals could make up more than, a couple 100,000 of that 8 million. And yet they are, as you say, punching above their weight, if you use a boxing metaphor, to say they're hurting a lot of people because they've realized they have a special kind of protection. But what happened was the New York Post got a hold of these numbers from people within the police department who are as frustrated, I think, as we are. 75% of the people they've been arresting in Midtown Manhattan for assault, robbery, and domestic violence are illegals. In Queens, the number is 60%. So you have a tiny population of people doing a gigantic amount of damage, and they're not even supposed to be here.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. We go to New York every year, myself and a couple other people from the station for the NEB Awards. And, you know, Lars, at one time, New York City was a great place. It was wonderful. Now you've got the weed, you've got the assault on police officers, you've got people going after Donald Trump, Alvin Bragg, focusing in on President Trump as opposed to just the streets running amok. It makes what happened before Rudy Giuliani seem quaint.
Well, and when you have police who are, you know, like Mayor Adams, who says, right now, we don't have authorization to be able to go and coordinate with ICE. We have to follow the law. So you arrest an illegal alien, and you say, well, he or she, mostly he, is not even supposed to be here. Why don't you turn him over to ICE and have him deported? And the answer is, even the mayor, Eric Adams, who's a liberal Democrat, but he's saying, we don't have authority to do that. You don't have authority to turn over a criminal illegal alien who's just committed a serious violent crime, turn him over to ICE and have him removed from the country altogether. No. And it sounds like there may be people who are criminals who are incredibly stupid in some ways, but they seem to be fairly well informed. And it's always struck me that they seem to know exactly how far they can go before they run into trouble. So, you know, I mean, there was once a kid who got arrested for car theft. And a detective I knew was in the elevator with him as he was being brought up in handcuffs for his latest car theft. And he turned to one of the detectives that was escorting him and said, you have to keep me in custody if I have stolen more than 14 cars, don't you? And he was at 12 or 13 or 11 or some other number. He knew exactly what would get him held in custody and what would not. And I think the illegals they completely understand this. In many cases, they come from lawless societies in other parts of the world, both Central and South America and other parts of the world, and they don't have to pay any attention to what the cops want. And then they arrive in a country which is rich with criminal opportunities and pathetic when it comes to actually having consequences for the criminals.
Our great friend Lars Larson joining us, Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So, Lars, it's after Labor Day. We're getting ready for the debate. You have two audiences, and probably many more. We'll throw in the online folks as well. How do you see this as our barometer, first from the Northwest and then from the national perspective?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I think Donald Trump has got a kind of a tough needle to thread in this case because you know that they will immediately make it about race and gender if he treats her rudely, let's say. And Trump has a style to him. We know what the style is, and I don't have a problem with his style. I like his rough and tumble kind of style. But it's almost as though you've heard for decades that women want to be treated equally, but then you've also heard that if you're in a political race against somebody who's female, although that definition on the Democrat side of the aisle is fungible as well, who knows what a female is, certainly not the Democrat Party, that they say, but you cannot attack somebody's policy positions or we'll simply accuse you of being a racist or misogynistic, anti-woman, or both. You say, so in other words, we're going to give women candidates a level of deference that males don't get? Is that what we call equality today?
We call it the pass.
We give you the pass. And that means voters don't get informed because I want Trump to ask Kamala Harris. She did that interview last week, softball interview with Dana Bash from CNN. And Bash asked some pretty good questions of both Walz and Kamala Harris. But why in the world she couldn't just sit down for an interview by herself? I know why. She doesn't have answers for any of the serious questions. And when you ask her, in 2019 as a presidential candidate, even in early 2020 as a presidential candidate, you said you wanted a ban on fracking. And you don't give up your values. But the minute Joe Biden, the guy you had called a racist segregationist, said, hey, Kamala, would you like the number 2 job and run with me as my running mate, she immediately gave up, apparently, a bunch of those positions. Only she wants to say, I haven't changed my values. Well, she wanted a ban on fracking. She wanted to decriminalize illegal entry to the United States. She wanted to ban private health insurance. And people should understand, when you see her say, I want Medicare for all, a lot of people may hear that phrase and say, well, what does that mean? It means your private health insurance becomes illegal and unavailable. There is no reason for your employer to continue to pay $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 a year for a health insurance policy when we have nationalized health care. And anybody who thinks they like nationalized health care, it's great for young, healthy people. It is not so great for everybody else. Because if you talk to, in fact, if any of your audience doesn't believe me, find one of the major Canadian newspapers online, Toronto Star, any of those, and look up the term wait times, medical wait times. Because in America, if you went to see your GP, man or woman, and he puts a stethoscope on you, you're having some troubles, and he says, I think you've got a heart problem. You need to see a cardiologist. In most places in America, you're going to see a cardiologist that week. You might even see the cardiologist that day. And if the cardiologist says, you've clearly got a blockage in one of your coronary arteries, which does happen, in many cases, they'll have you in surgery before the end of the week, perhaps even the same day. In Canada, and check me if you don't believe me, they say their goal is to have everybody seen by a specialist within 6 months of diagnosis. They want to see at least 50% of the patients. So, your mom or dad, grandma or grandpa has a heart problem. And the doctor says, all indications are there's a heart problem here. Oh, good. When will they see a cardiologist? Sometime within 6 months, we hope. Well, hold on. They have a serious problem. They need to see a cardiologist. They'll see them in 6 months. What might happen in the meantime? Well, grandma or grandpa might just drop dead. But that saves the system money, because the government looks at it as that's one more person we don't have to do a stent or a bypass for. And so that's how healthcare gets rationed in that kind of system. Whereas in a private health system, which is the majority of people are covered by private health insurance, provided usually as one of the ways you're compensated, you get a paycheck from your employer and you get health insurance. Medicare for all comes along, and Kamala Harris has said she is for Medicare for all, and she wants it. It replaces your private health insurance, and you get your health care from the same people who badly manage the DMV and Amtrak and the post office.
Lars Larson joining us. Catch him today at 4. Let's talk about the view from your national perspective. How do you see the House and Senate going? And once again, I'm fixated on this race because it's the closest one to all of us, Montana.
Tester,
race,
yeah. I think Tester is going to lose, and I think Tim Sheehy is going to win. I hope that Montanans have enough common sense. I've lived in the state a couple of times as a kid. It's a great state, but they should not be represented by John Tester. And if you haven't noticed, Tester and his campaign have now tried to distance themselves from Kamala Harris. Even though we're told she's the new flavor of the day, Joe's off. They've kicked Joe to the sidelines. She's the great new choice of who? The Democrat Party elites, because she wasn't chosen by voters and she wasn't chosen by delegates. The delegates were told, you can vote for any presidential candidate you want as long as it's Kamala Harris. There's one item on the menu, and that's it. It's like showing up at a place, you go into In-N-Out Burger and you say, I'd like a chicken sandwich. And they say, we have burgers.
Yeah.
You can choose a burger. And in this case, the hamburger is Kamala Harris. So, but ordinarily, Democrats running for re-election love to have the attention of a top-flight Democrat candidate like the candidate for president. Tester doesn't want anything to do with Kamala Harris.
Well, or to really date you and me, no Coke, Pepsi.
Yeah, no Coke, Pepsi.
Yeah, from the old SNL days. But back to Tester, though.
Yeah.
Again, as a native of this land, Tester's very unique, Lars. You know the people of Montana. I mean, he's a guy that, most of the state is red. It's a toss-up, millions of dollars spent there. He's had a unique connection. Remember back in the day when Chris Matthews had hardball, he was a favorite of the national media because he was that old blue dog Democrat. And Donald Trump tried to get him in 2018, but you really think his number might be up this time?
I think it might be, because I think people realize the policies you're living under right now. I mean, there may be, and I know people who say, I don't care that much about politics. Well, the problem is everything is political. The cost of your food, when you go to the grocery store and you are stunned by how much your groceries cost this month compared to a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, that's the result of mostly federal policies. You had increases in energy costs, and food is made of energy. Anybody who doesn't believe that, talk to a farmer. And it ain't just the diesel he puts in the tractor. It's the fact that all the fertilizer that helps grow that food is coming from petrochemicals. And Kamala Harris and the rest would like to stop that. They'd like to end that. And so if you make oil more expensive, which Joe Biden has done by making us not energy independent as we were the day he took office, saying, I'm going to shut down drilling. Kamala Harris was in favor of a fracking ban, which is stupid. Fracking's been around since the 1960s, Kevin. And a handy number to remind you of, America has more than 1 million fracked wells, and they've produced an abundance of oil and natural gas you would not believe. I mean, if you look at the numbers, it's just stunning. So we have all this energy that we can use. And what do they make fertilizer out of? For the most part, petrochemicals mean natural gas to a large extent. So if you like sitting down to your meal tonight at home or at a restaurant, that meal is made from oil and natural gas. I mean, there's a process to turn it into fertilizer, to power those tractors, to plant all those crops, to harvest them, to haul them off to where they're processed into the stuff you buy at the store. And what has happened? Wages are up because dramatic inflation has forced employers to pay more money. And every one of those inputs, where energy is more expensive, that adds to the cost. Labor is more expensive, that adds to the cost. Everything has become more expensive. If you like those policies, by all means, vote for Kamala Harris. If you don't, and it's not just filling up your gas tank. It's heating your house. It's powering your automobile. It's running the business that you work at. Because believe me, it's interesting. I think you should check sometime. Share it with your audience. What is the monthly electric bill for KIDO? Do you know?
Oh, 5,000 watts plus the FM. I don't know. No.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, radio stations often pay tens of thousands of dollars a month. Well, guess what happens? When energy costs go up, and all of a sudden the GM sitting in the corner office says, hey, our electric bill's gone up, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. He looks around the radio station and says, I don't have any more money coming in because the economy sucks right now, and that's where radio stations get their money, is advertising. So where can I cut $3,000 or $4,000? And do you know where the most available answer is? Cut a person or cut two people. You say, I really don't want to let these people go. I mean, it kills me when I've had to let people go, but there it is. So you say, okay, because these changes don't come without some cost. So when you say we're going to see electric costs go up dramatically, and I think, what was it, Obama said electric costs would necessarily skyrocket. Well, guess what? We've arrived at that day where the electric costs are going up dramatically. And when the local pizza joint, I know running all those ovens does not come free. It's either natural gas or electricity. When those costs go up, and you walk into the restaurant and you say, you used to have 5, 6 servers in here. Now you've got 3. What happened? Cost of everything went up, and this is the only place we could cut the bill.
We're going to get you out on this one, Lars.
Yep.
Because unlike you, I spend my Sundays watching all the dumb shows. Why? I love to talk back at them. When they start talking back at me, talking back to them, well, then we're going to have some issues. But you're going to love this one. This is from CNN's State of the Union, where we have Tulsi Gabbard revealing something that has been going on. You're probably on the list. I'm sure a lot of members of Congress are. But here's with Dana Bash, where she talks about the lack of the First Amendment.
Have taken actions both directly and indirectly to censor free speech. Most recently, I can point to my own experience of this, of how the Harris-Biden administration have added me to a secret domestic terror watch list the very day after Kamala Harris was endorsed by Joe Biden, and I was on TV and warning the American people about what I saw as the dangers of a Kamala Harris presidency.
Your reaction?
This is one of the dangers, and Kevin, you should know that she was put on the. I'm trying to remember the Quiet Skies. I'm trying to remember the name of the program. She's being monitored every time she flies on an airplane. You say, well, why are they doing that to her? She's a political opponent of the Biden regime, the Biden crime family, and now, hence, she's an enemy of the Kamala Harris crime organization, and. I've got a great soundbite that I just pulled over the weekend of Kamala Harris talking about, well, all these people, social media companies, are allowing all this free speech without any monitoring or, control. And I thought, you're part of the government, and you're talking about that somebody should monitor and control the free speech of American citizens or groups or individuals. Yeah, they believe in that. They want to shut down anybody who opposes them. And Kevin, this is not an unfamiliar idea for Americans in seeing it in foreign countries. When you say, well, Vladimir Putin's running for re-election, but he won't let his opponents run against him. He'll throw them in prison. He'll silence their voices. Yeah, that's how dictatorships are run. And the Biden administration is the same. They've admitted that they deliberately throttled information during the pandemic. They've deliberately throttled information during the riots. The George Floyd riots, as they're called. So you have people in government who believe that it is their job to decide whether or not you're allowed to say something and whether or not people are allowed to read or hear it.
Lars, anything else we should be looking out for? We always thank you for joining us today.
So many things, but the one thing that you might get a kick out of, play the latest, I'll send you the links, play the latest dialect that Kamala Harris has adopted. It actually has brought comparisons to that Looney Tunes character, Foghorn Leghorn, because you have never heard her speak in a Southern accent. If you say, okay, what's the big deal? She's a fake. She's a phony. She will be whatever you want her to be as long as she gets your vote. If she was for, a ban on fracking at one point and then completely flip-flopped, it's because she sees a victory by completely flip-flopping on things. Then ask yourself, what has Donald Trump flipped on? And when you say, well, nothing I can think of right away, but when Kamala Harris says, I want a ban on private health insurance, I want to have decriminalized illegal entry to the United States, I want a ban on fracking, she advocated for, within the last 5 years, saying, I want a ban on the sale of new gasoline cars by 2035. I'll remind you, that's 10 years from now. Meaning you'll walk onto a car lot and you'll be told, kind of like the Democrat delegates were, you can choose any car you want as long as it's electric.
Lars Larson.
Well, hold on. Yeah.
We got to run,
ahead,
but we appreciate you, brother.
I talk too much.
No, we love to listen. It's great content. You kidding me? We love it. We watch you on every day at 6 a.m. Mountain Time. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, if only the rest of my schedule could handle that.
Thank you, Lars. You take care.
Take care, Kevin. Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye. Our great friend Lars Larson, Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. More coming up. We've heard from our experts. Now we'll hear from you, Kevin Miller. Good morning, TPB.
Well, good morning, Mr. Miro. Hope you had a wonderful Labor Day. Did a little barbecuing, maybe? Sat in the backyard?
No.
As usual, you were just working again. Is that right?
Yes.
That's what I figured. Well, anyway, I love Dave Petso, but he always seems to be a bit behind the curve. We have been in a recession for several months, and if Kamala gets elected, we're going to hell in a handbasket. This problem that too many of our eligible voters don't have a clue as to what is happening in the real world, except for the fact that they are economically doing a lot worse than when Trump was in office. They are low-information voters who are listening to the liberal media and hanging on every word that Donald Trump is responsible for their problems, and Kamala is the solution with her joy and hope, who still hasn't put any policy forward that makes any sense to fix the border or the economy. You're right when you say she talks like someone on Sesame Street, because that is the level of voters she is trying to reach. And believe it or not, she is reaching them. She has yet to talk anything about what to do with the illegals in our country and how we have an open border. Her economic platform is non-existent and consists totally of government intervention. She talks out of both sides of her mouth, and you can never get an answer that makes any sense because she is totally scripted and actually doesn't understand most of what she's saying. And I'm beginning to believe that too many Americans have been so dumbed down that they no longer know right from wrong. Kamala talks about how she's going to fix the economy, health care, and the housing crisis. She will tell you how life has improved under Bidenomics, but she doesn't say how she will fix these problems that she has helped create. She doesn't tell voters that she intends to allow Trump tax cuts to expire, raising their taxes, which will cost individuals $1,400 a year and a family of four $2,900 a year. If you go to look at Google, you see everything she says backed up by the liberal media, including information denying that Trump cut taxes. Instead, they claim tax cuts were for the rich. This is a huge propaganda machine that Trump is up against. It's no different with the rise in crime that is not being reported in the big cities to make people think all is well. This election has become a game of lying to the public. This debate is going to be a make or break event, and I only hope that Trump will stay on message and keep his cool, because just one misstep and a liberal press will crucify him. And don't be fooled by how much misinformation is being put out to those low information voters, as they are being pummeled with lies. The one thing Trump has going for him is that he has allied with RFK, which I still believe will be the swing factor in the electoral college votes for the swing states. Kevin, I thank you for my time, and I hope you have a wonderful week.
Well, you bring up a good point when we're looking at the media and people not tuning in to radio, not tuning into television. They're just getting it from TikTok. They're just getting it from wherever. So they believe the videos, it's the sizzle over the steak.
But that's not going to change, Kevin. We've seen that. People are not going to change on a dime. They're not going to turn on a dime. It's not going to happen. And when you look at the size of this technology machine and this media machine that are out there, we have never had anything like this in history. Not even when you go back to World War II. This is the biggest propaganda machine in history. And we have it right here in the United States. And it's going to continue to function the way it has, trying to tear this country down bit by bit and turn it into a socialist quagmire.
Well, that's why we're the watchers on the wall, buddy.
You betcha. And you have this program going. Don't let them take it away, my friend, because it's the only thing we have out there that's at least telling us what's really happening. Everything else is a bunch of false information.
Tea Party Bob, we always appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Take care, my friend.
You too, our great friend Tea Party Bob. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. Stop freaking, call Beacon.
And yet, as we've seen time and time again, her and Joe Biden have taken actions both directly and indirectly to censor free speech. Most recently, I can point to my own experience of this, of how the Harris-Biden administration have added me to a secret domestic terror watch list the very day after Kamala Harris was endorsed by Joe Biden. And I was on TV and warning the American people about what I saw as the dangers of a Kamala Harris presidency, taking action that was clearly political retaliation. They've done this to a lot of different people, which points to how dangerous it is to have people in power so willing to abuse that power to go after political opponents.
Agreed. Let's get back to the phones. Kevin Miller with you. Hello, Mark. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. I was listening to your caller in the previous hour talking about our media and what Tea Party Bob had to say. You talk about, censoring. Look what's happened to Elon Musk down there in Brazil. The one that the NFL, and I can tell you the State Department and our deep state government's behind pushing the NFL to play, a stupid exhibition game down there in Brazil. Football is what they play, not our kind of football. So you know what I'm talking about. So, I read you the story last week on air, or I should say I mentioned it to you because it was on Breitbart as well as the Revolver.com, Gateway Pundit, huge. U.S. State Department pushed voting machine semiconductors prior to Brazilian election. Then the CIA pressured populist candidate Jair Bolsonaro to keep his mouth shut when he lost. And then Elon Musk responds. So you get your own deep state. You know, Senator Tuberville of Alabama had talked about this also last week. You get a deep state that is running this country. We've heard it before, whether it's from Trump or other conservative out there. We are living and have been living probably since the JFK assassination under the illusion that we're living in a constitutional republic. We get idiots that are being put out and turned out if they don't drop out from our school systems, our universities, our colleges that are just become and brainwashed as useful idiots for the globalist socialist elites out there. You know, you look at people like, you know, the ones that are, you wonder who the deep state are. I could tell you, the Bushes. In fact, I just read where little George Jr., wanted to look into, they were talking about, I guess, him backing Kamala Harris. I stood way back. There's a lot of us who thought that the Bushes were traitors to the country. The Clintons, Obamas, Bidens, Schumer, Pelosi, even Mitch McConnell, those are your deep state thugs that are out there with that globalist mentality that don't care about our country. You know, and here's another thing. I have not, Kevin, and you listen to a lot of news out there, KIDO, and for your show so you can, you know, mention it out there to your, you know, your listening audience. But have you heard anybody mention the fact that this dingbat has about 1/10 the brain power of either, of all things, Nancy Pelosi or even Hillary the Witch Clinton? I mean, both those witches had the backing as far as the background, and even Hillary, as much as despised as she is, that, like I said, Kamala doesn't even have 1/10 their knowledge on running things. And yet what we're being fed, and I can tell you what's going to happen, like I said, my fear is that she, like the Biden, was fraudulently put there in power, and that it was so they can be the fall people. Then you can't go back and say, well, the government, look what the government did to us. No, they're going to claim that your fraudulent banana-like republic voting system put those people in, including the clown like Kamala Harris, the chameleon, the cackling chameleon, and they're going to probably help put her in there so they can finish off this country. Our Constitution is heading by a thread right now. They're about ready to cut the cord. I don't know how.
So, Mark, here you and I are, people that have dedicated our lives to freedom, that we're being run out by an app perpetrated by the Chinese. I mean, America really has become the land of the stupid. Look, I'm going to get on my phone, and I'm going to do a little Chris Trupis here. It's antiquated now, but...
Go enjoy your beer and ride your ATV and watch sports. We'll run the country.
It's listen to your TikTok, and we don't care about anything else. Oh, look at her cackle. Ha, 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 ha.
Well, wasn't it in the Communist Manifesto that said take over the schools, the libraries, the media complex? It's right there before our eyes. Something that was talked about 60, 70 years ago that they wanted to do, and it's happened again. I keep pointing this out. I wish you'd have almost like a sit-down class for your listeners out there and look at some of the highlights of the Communist Manifesto and then show what has happened now in this day and age to our country and what the Communist Manifesto stated they were going to do to undermine and destroy our country from within, destroy the family. It was all there, and we act like we ignore it. If we don't talk about it, and this is my biggest problem with our lying scumbag deep state media and your government.
Look, wait a minute. They're in on it, Mark.
Well, of course
they're not. They're on the other team. Why would they say anything else?
How did they get there? Like I said last week, how did this happen to our country?
Sure.
Who were the traitors?
Thanks, Obama.
50, 60 years. Yeah, well, it goes back a long time that the traitors that did what they did to this country. It goes back to Daddy Bush, who was with the CIA before he became the director of the CIA. It goes back even before that SOB. So that's all I got to say. You got to look back at the root of where this all stemmed from. And it started not too long after the United Nations nothings were put into power. And then the crooked globalists, the ones, the billionaires out there who back these people
and pushed us to where we are now.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
You missed us yesterday, didn't you?
I thought it was a repeat yesterday.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, are you telling me you were on air live? I thought you said Monday you were going to have the day off last week.
We did. We had the Fox Labor Day special, but, I mean, you did miss us, though, didn't you? I can tell you missed us.
Yes, I know. Yeah, but
because you're especially you're especially I know you're especially fired up, and I get that. That's what we're kind of like your therapist here.
It's no, sorry, I don't have one. I don't need one. Well, but I can tell you a lot of people out there.
Now wait a minute, Mark. I think you do need a therapist after this.
You better thank a union member. For the 5-day work week, you better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Yeah, Mark, you better thank.
Hillary did that. Hillary did that same thing when she ran. She put on the fake accent in one state, goes to another state. You hear her. In fact, Gateway Pundit had a deal where her talking down.
There we go with the Gateway Pundit. Mark, I got to go. We love you. Mark missed us yesterday. Brought to you by our friends at CapEd Credit Union, CBS 2. It was wonderful to see so many people at the Night Glow. And, of course, Thursday morning we were there. Might have caught us on CBS 2. Let me see. I'm trying to think of anything else. I know Mrs. Miller and the family went on Sunday. I'm a little ballooned out, but it was a remarkable crowd on Sunday as well. And like I said, it was good to see everybody on Friday night. And I do want to thank everybody who attended, who volunteered. Our friends at MAP Security, led by security guard Mike. It was a wonderful, wonderful event. And hopefully we'll see you next year. And if you got a chance, maybe you saw the article I wrote remembering Scott Spencer, Larry Gebert, and Teresa Palgrim, who were such an iconic part of the Balloon Classic. And Mr. Spencer could have taken that anywhere, but he didn't. He kept it here in Boise. And, of course, is there ever... No, and we could talk about people that have gone on to, I don't want to ever say moved on, but who have gone other places, done other things, have gone to New York City or Phoenix or Las Vegas or what have you. But the commitment that Larry Gebert had, there'll never be, because it's different now, just like there'll never be another Kellen Moore, there'll never be another Larry Gebert, where you have a person who, and I would put Larry up against anybody nationally. Larry, the departed meteorologist from Channel 7 who died a few years ago. I think we lost Scott Spencer 3 years ago, and we lost Larry over 2 years ago. And these guys were, they were, magical to watch, where they would go back and forth and do all sorts of things. And like I said, Larry was the charitable, nonprofit best friend to anybody in and around the state of Idaho. And like I said, there are other, and as local television continues to fade, obviously it is still very important, still very this, but just like local radio, we all have our challenges, but you have those iconic local personalities. And really you have to credit the folks at Channel 7, Doug Armstrong, now who's a chaplain for the Idaho Senate, who really understood the magic of those people. And, the Dee Sartons, the Mark Johnsons, the Carolyn Hollies, that really could have gone other places. And Mark did. Mark went to Pittsburgh and went to Milwaukee, but understood that the quality of life here in Idaho is just second to none, and the quality is just amazing. And so, again, it's always with a tone of melancholy, I think that's the word, that when I'm out there at the Balloon Classic, I always think of our old friends, Scott and Larry, and of course Teresa, along with Jim Duthie, who would film these things, and they made such a big deal out of the weather and making sure the balloon people were safe and making sure that, everybody had a wonderful time, but the pilots were safe and the power lines were safe and everything was safe. So big ups to a safe, successful Spirit of Boise Balloon Classic. And like I said, we couldn't do it without CapEd Credit Union, CBS 2, and of course the parent company of KIDO Talk Radio, Town Square Media, throughout the country. So we appreciate that. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to have a very special guest, Mayor Tammy and her husband, of Meridian will join us. She's written a new book concerning something many of us didn't know about that happened to her and her family. And we will talk about that with her and her husband and talk probably about their new winery and stuff, but life outside of politics. I don't know if we're going to get a chance to talk about what's really going on in Meridian because, quite frankly, when you take a look at Meridian, the person who's responsible for that growth and the business is Mayor Tammy, who left office, was it 5 years ago now? I know what's his name has been in there 4 years, 5 years maybe. So we will have her on and you don't want to miss the 8 o'clock hour. Now, if you are going to miss it, by the way, you can get the podcast. Look, we don't pimp the podcast, and I know there are a lot of people. I met a guy, I was walking, and like a lot of us, we need to get more consistent on the walking. And I'm sitting there on the podcast, the walk, listening to a podcast, and this guy goes, I've been listening to you since before I moved here. And he's a truck driver. I believe his name is Larry from Oregon. And he and his beautiful wife, they live in our neighborhood, and they do such a great job. And it was just nice to meet Larry and just learn about the wonderful life that he has and the American dream and everything else. And when we talk about this program, that's really what it's about. And if you can't listen to it live on 107.5 FM or 580 AM, that's why we have the podcast. And, I could break down the cities across the country, but we're not into that. We're into serving you. So we've had a lot of bad news. We've had the prognostications of Tea Party Bob and Mark, the watchdog of Eagle. I'm going to give you a good news. Maybe we're going to get into this tomorrow, but this is my new best friend, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Senator Cotton was on Meet the Press, and they tried to lie, and he wouldn't let it go. So let's take a listen. This will inspire you today by someone in the Senate that ain't letting the liberals get away with it.
To Meet the Press.
Thank you, Kristen, for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's start with this devastating news, the discovery of 6 bodies, hostages, including Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg Poland. Everyone, I think, feels heartbroken this morning, the entire nation and, frankly, world mourning these deaths. What is your reaction, Senator, and what do you think this will mean for hostage negotiations?
Well, it's terribly sad news that Hamas executed these 6 hostages in cold blood, apparently shot them in the head shortly before they might have been rescued by Israeli Defense Forces. My heart goes out to all the families, especially Hirsch Goldberg Poland's family, our fellow American. There are other fellow Americans still to be accounted for. But I think we should note that these hostages were discovered in the tunnels under Rafah. That's where Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put pressure on Israel not to enter for months, used an arms embargo to try to keep them from entering. Kamala Harris even said that Israel shouldn't enter Rafah because she had studied the maps. What the Biden-Harris administration should have done from the beginning is not pressure Israel to restrain its response, but let Israel win from the very outset. For 11 months, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have put more pressure on Israel than they put on Hamas and Iran's other terror proxies.
And Senator, just to be clear, there, of course, is no arms embargo. It is true that the Biden administration did
and here we go.
one shipment of arms out of concern of civilian casualties.
No, Kristen, that's not correct.
It is correct. There's no arms embargo.
For weeks, the Biden-Harris administration put an embargo not just on large 2,000-pound bombs, which of course are needed to penetrate these deep and buried tunnels, but on things like tank rounds and artillery shells and mortar rounds.
It was just one shipment of arms. It was the 2,000-pound
Kristen,
weapons
it was a
that you're
large
talking about
category
and
of weapons.
500 pounds. But
it was a large category of weapons.
Okay, but they have now moved forward with that. It's not an arms embargo, though, just to be very clear. That's a very specific term, and it's not an arms embargo.
It was in place for many weeks, specifically to try to prevent Israel from entering Rafah, where these hostages were discovered.
Yeah.
If we had simply backed Israel to the hilt from October 7th, this war would probably be over. We probably would have found many more hostages alive, and there would have been fewer civilian casualties caused by Hamas's infliction of those civilian casualties on its own people. But at every turn, Joe...
Now remember, he's the senator. He signed the legislation. And here you have Kristen Welker. By the way, NBC had to apologize for getting their facts wrong. This is how we need to be when we're talking about making our point, when we're talking about not backing down, when we have the facts. You're not going to sit there and tell a senator, according to... No, they're lying, and they need to be called out on this. And God bless Senator Cotton. We tweeted it at Kevin Miller Show over the weekend, but that's what it's going to take because they are lying. They are in the bed. They are in the tank, and we're not. We're very grateful for you. As we always say, God bless you. Keep the faith, and Kay Millie loves you. Fox News Now.